The Sonic Movie Show is a weekly podcast that you could find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other services like YouTube. Just search for The Sonic Movie Show and give us a like wherever you listen. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of The Sonic Movie Show, the only show that's about Sonic news, not really, movie news sometimes, AMC news as of late, sometimes movie reviews, and now today a video game spoiler review discussion finanza, whatever we want to call this. My name is Ethan, and with me here today is Devin.
The rot runs deep in this damn pizza.
Yes, it does. I actually know that quote. Maybe just because I played the video game.
I had
a couple
backups. I had Shinra bitches get what they deserve. And I'm not a rat dog.
Okay, so two of them were Barrett lines.
Most of them. Yeah, he had the best lines, I think. Well, we can talk about that, but...
Guess how old Barrett is.
42.
Close. He's the oldest. He's 35.
I thought he was younger, but I'm like, maybe it's like, because he's a little
That's the thing with anime.
He's a little war-torn, you know what I mean?
That's the thing with anime. Your grizzled old veteran could be 20 fucking 8. Yeah, you know? Like, it's just, I mean, Cloud's 21, Tifa's 20, Aerith's 22. Reno and Rude, they're like 28. They were the Turks, the red-haired Turk and the bald Turk.
And Red there, he's 89.
He's 48.
He's 48?
He's 48, yeah. Because he's a different species.
How old is Professor Hojo?
I have the book here. Hold on.
The official lore book.
I'm sorry. Rude is 30. Reno is 28. Song is 30. Rufus is 30. Reeve is 35. Palmer's 64. Scarlet, she's 40. Hojo is 62.
Okay. I see it, I guess.
Heidegger is 58. President Shinra is 67. 67.
I mean, he's the oldest looking in my book. He has Joe Biden vibes a little bit.
Okay, so now here's weird. Do you remember she was really only in one big side quest, but you did see her in the story briefly in like chapter 14. The weird little like not young, but like teenage looking girl with like the hat and the striped stockings. She's trying to scam people.
Yeah.
But did you do all the side quests?
All of them, but I think I missed one. It was the when you were with Aerith and Cloud, the option to like go back and do more fights. I didn't do those because I had no money.
Oh, okay, that doesn't count as a side quest.
It said in the thing. It said I failed to get that one.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, her name was Kyrie. She's 17. She's a minor, but they make some weird sexual references to her.
Japan, baby.
That's
Japan.
Matter. Yeah. Biggs is 25. Jesse's 23. Wedge is 20. Sephiroth, his age is undetermined. We're talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake.
He's not sure
himself. Actually, you're not wrong. You're not actually wrong.
Maybe that's why he's so angry.
It's true. So yes, ages aside, at this episode of the Sonic Movie Show, we're actually going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Maybe I shouldn't have said all the ages before saying we're going to be talking spoiler full of this entire thing, but that's not a spoiler. Oh yeah, they're all of age. Your ships all matter now. I actually saw on Twitter an artist, I guess I follow a bunch of artists on Twitter, drawn after this game came out. They're all drawn Final Fantasy VII characters. Some really cool. Lots of pairings, lots of relationships going on. One of them tweeted that a lot of people had blocked her because she preferred Cloud and Tifa over Cloud and Aerith. So that's the way people are sometimes. But yes, we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake. 2020 video game for the PlayStation 4 computer entertainment system. We're going to be spoiling everything PC, and everything.
No?
So they never confirmed PC, but a launch day trailer said footage captured on PC. But when they announced the game, and still, to this day, they said it's first on PlayStation 4, and it will come to Xbox a year later.
Launch title for the new Xbox.
That's half a year.
I know, but just what if?
Well, if they delayed the Xbox till April.
Just make it a port, easy port.
Sure.
Easy.
But yes, we're going to be talking about this game. I'm going to say right now, I think we both like this game. That's why we're doing this episode, at least a little bit. Last time we did one of these episodes was for Nier Automata, another Square Enix game. I don't really know if
nerds. That's what people are thinking right
yeah,
now.
I don't know if we need to do any other sort of build up to what we're talking about. So I guess we can just start. What did we like and didn't like about the game will be our first kind of segment thing.
Do you want to do...
We haven't really done too many of these kinds of things, so I'm trying to think about our structure here in terms of how to make this a podcast. I say we do
likes first.
Okay.
We just see where it goes, and then, and if you have a negative thought, you put that in a box for now. Put that in a box for now.
Okay. So why don't I give one of mine first?
Okay.
And let's see if you do it. So I think that this game, which had been worked on, and it was announced 5 years ago, but really only maybe worked on for 3 because they scrapped the game because they had a different developer making it, and then they literally threw all that away and started over in 2017. Regardless of that amount of time, this game to me seems extremely polished, and one of the ways in which I think that is proven is that there are a shit ton of boss fights, and they're all completely unique. Yeah, maybe some of them you kind of are operating the same way. Oh, this is a giant robot too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of those are new to this game that weren't in the original. But the ways in which you go into combat, the characters you have at the time with you are different. Every single one of these are unique. And I think the one main takeaway about this video game itself, the 1997 original Final Fantasy VII, while it's certainly not one of the best games of all time, it is one of the most beloved games of all time. Hands down, the way people talk about, oh, everyone owns GTA 5. Oh, that's a game everyone wanted to get, whatever. That was this game back in the day. People saw commercials for it and were like, that looks cool, the graphics look great, I'll get it. Didn't realize it was an RPG. This was their first one. This was just that game. And it's easy for fans to really grasp onto these kinds of oh, this game is so beloved, or this aspect of this is just so memorable to me, and we're all going to meme about it or reference it over and over again. But to see in this game that the people making it are the exact same way, it shines through like crazy. And I want to specifically point out 2 boss fights. Hell House, which it was one of the highlights of the game for me. Also, the boss fight that killed me the most. I died 3 times, I think, to Hell House.
I want to say I died at least 3 or 4 as well. I remember getting the first time I got my ass handed to me, and I'm like, I threw so much at it, and I did nothing, and I'm like, uh-oh, we might be in trouble, boys, because
it wasn't until I decided to suck up my pride and change up my material loadout. Yeah. Okay, I need more than 1 magic.
Yeah.
I can't wait till it cycles back to fire. I need to wait and you use them all.
I didn't know Aerith was... I didn't like Aerith, playing as Aerith, or found her valuable up until that, because I'm like, okay, I can go hard in the paint with Cloud.
Oh, yeah.
And then she can just heal him, or throw spells at the Hell House to weaken him, or whatever. And I just thought at first because in the past when I tried playing as her just to switch it up, or up to that point, I would just use her, and I'm like, I'm not doing as much damage, and I wasn't paying paying much attention to all the materia I was using and whatnot. And then I started figuring it out, but it still wasn't even until later in the game where I'm like, oh, you can combine 2 materia. That's what that little slot thing is for, huh?
Yeah.
It took me at least 25 hours in to figure that out, and I'm like, crap. But
I don't think that you have a wasted time, or a wasted experience rather, because this game, while it does want you to know things, to tutorialize things to you early, it's more than fine letting you figure out, oh, Tifa's triangle attacks raise the stagger percentage itself.
Yeah. So
that you can do over 300% damage on some bosses. They don't tell you that. They want you to figure it out. And the flow of this game is more so once you beat it, you're going to have questions. and the game is going to tell you, okay, you can chapter select now to, if you want, if you missed anything, you can go back. You'll gain, I think, 3 times the experience and twice the AP. And then also, here's hard mode, which has restrictions on it to make it harder. But then each boss drops a new manual, I think they're called. I haven't really gone into it too much. Which raises your stats and gives you new limit breaks and shit. Like, they want you to play the game a second time. And I think they give you lots of story reasons why. And that's where the game is really supposed to click to a lot of people. After I beat the game, I looked at a lot of, spoiler discussions and read a lot of like reviews and deep thoughts. And that's kind of how it went, of like, people realized then, oh, Tifa can do this, or, oh, Aerith is really good at zoning like this, or Barrett. Why the hell would I want to equip a melee weapon on Barrett? Oh, that's why I want to. Like, it.
Yeah, I
a
got
game
that.
is more than
I
fine.
was so
you
late
waiting.
in the game that I'm like, I'm gonna stick with what I got because everything is powered up with his one gun there. So I just stuck with that. But I did see like some of those, and I'm like I like RPGs, but I don't love them. I've said it before, at least to you. I don't know if I've said it on the show before, that like I like my hand to be held in video games. Like, I don't mind some customization with like.
You want it very streamlined. You don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah,
you don't want to feel like you fucked up.
Yeah, or like I don't have this one weapon, and now I'm this boss is gonna suck.
You don't want to allocate your level up points in the wrong thing and feel like you're wasting, because there are RPGs that are more than fine letting you make it hard on yourself without realizing it.
Yeah, I like it to be streamlined, exactly.
And that's, I guess. I was talking about Hell House, but I want to actually now hop over to segue into another positive. The materia system in this game is pretty faithful to the original, besides obviously materia that they didn't want to give you this time around, although they did add some new ones. In the original game, it's a turn-based RPG, and games leading up to that, including Final Fantasy games that were turn-based, were more of like, okay, here is your warrior class, your mage class, your healer, your tank, or whatever. And when they level up, based off their class, they're going to gain stats in here and here. And maybe, in games where it allows you to, like Final Fantasy VI, for instance, had this whole thing where there was these crystals that you could equip to characters. And it, using them a lot allowed that character to learn a skill, an ability, a spell, whatever. They were called espers in that game. And they were also kind of summons too, but it was weird. Gotcha. In that game, if, your main character, Terra there, if she had this certain esper equipped to her and she used a whole bunch, she got to learn a skill from it. Cool, now she knows that skill. The esper isn't the thing that knows the skill, it's Terra. When you jump to Final Fantasy VII, it's like, no, your fire materia is now leveled up. It doesn't matter who holds it. So if you realized late in Final Fantasy VI you don't want to use Terra, you wasted time because she used the skill a bunch, you used it on her. In 7, if you realize, I don't fucking like Barrett, you get rid of Barrett. Give all of his shit to someone else. That's how streamlined the game kind of worked, without making it feel fucked up.
I was gonna ask, so like you said, you can power up the materia, and like not too often did I switch it unless I felt like I didn't have anyone on the team, who could have ice materia. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, so I'd switch that around. But like, I feel like I picked up so many materia of the same. Am I supposed to be selling those? Like, I was kind of confused.
I never did.
I never sold any, except like I had like 5 ice materia, so I just sold like 3 of
those
them when
fine.
Because I was desperate for money at one point.
Okay.
Because I spent it all on getting a hand massage.
Okay. Yeah.
I did the max on that, by the way.
I did the middle one, and I wish I did the max, but I will. In my
I don't know what the difference is.
I'll tell you what the difference is.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch of different types of materia. There's spell materia. They're green. There is independent materia, which
yellow.
They're purple.
Or no,
they're purple.
No, the yellow.
There are command materia. They're yellow.
Yeah.
And then there is support materia. They're blue, and then summons are red. Spells, obviously, is an action you are doing. Commands are an action you are doing. Independent are things like, your luck is up, your health is up. You can. I'm after I beat Remake, I played the original Final Fantasy VII and platinumed it. I have about 90 hours of that between me and VII Remake. So some of them I'm not remembering if they're in VII Remake itself. But those are all, independent. It doesn't matter where you slot them. It's going to affect the character. And then the blue support ones, if you socket them in a slot that's joined to another slot, it affects that one. So if you have one that's like, elemental materia, if you socket it with a fire materia, it means that all of your attacks also do fire damage, and you negate some fire damage done to you. If you level that up, boom, now it nullifies the damage. Level up again, you actually get healed by fire, which is cool. So there's stuff like that. The multiply, which in the original game was just called the all materia, which is very confusing. I'm glad they named it multiply in this. If you do a spell like fire, it's going to hit all of the enemies. If you do heal, it's going to heal all of your characters, which is cool. They really want you to ratchet that up and really think about strategies.
I didn't mess with those enough, more than I probably should have. I was very because, like I said, I don't play too many RPGs, and I didn't figure out a lot of stuff until later on, and that's one thing I didn't even really mess with too much. Was when I was healing people, I usually everyone had the ability to heal. That's kind of how I went in.
Oh, okay.
And I would just heal whoever was weak constantly, and I would grind out a boss if I have to. But I think that's why I struggled so much with Sephiroth at the end, was because he has a lot of he can kill someone in maybe a couple hits if you get too close, especially at the latter half of that fight. And the fact that I couldn't heal everybody all at once unless I used
Mega Potion.
A Mega Potion. Well, I meant Aerith has that ult that she has that heals everybody. And
her limit break.
So I would do that.
Yeah, so I mean, that was a basic combo I would put on either Tifa or Aerith, depending on where I was in the story, or Cloud sometimes, of multiply and cure. Because throwing regen on everyone all at once is just super useful at the beginning of a fight. But then there's also ones where it's you start with some of your ATB already on, which is cool.
Yeah, I used that with Aerith, so it was really helpful when I wanted to cast a spell right away if I already know the weakness of the wherever enemy I'm fighting. So
Aerith became my favorite player to play as. I think that's kind of
she's
my
a great
style.
Support player. I mean, I tried to do the opposite of what I did in Nier Automata, which were in Nier Automata I was very do not go aggro, just shoot him with the bot, the entire time. And in this game, I'm no, I'm going to be aggro, and that's why I'm
you kind of need to.
Me, Cloud and Tifa, I probably went hard in the paint with the most, in terms of especially enemies where you have to get up close and personal.
Yeah,
and I would just have Aerith or Barrett just as suppressing fire or just distraction almost. You know what I mean? So.
I mean, yeah, you can put. I put this materia on Bear. I forget what the name is.
I know which one you're talking about. Provoke.
If so if someone gets really low on health, I would put it on Barrett. He'd be get over here, and then all the enemies attack him. So then I can have the other someone else heal our damaged character.
I treated Barrett too as a tank in a way, though. At the same time, he'd be a distraction. He had the most health on my team, I think, at the end of it, and I also gave him the one power there that he will take damage for everyone else. So that was great when Tifo is low, but I'm the boss is super low health, and I think I can kill him. Yeah,
that's
what's get in there.
I think I can just do it. I don't want to waste this time. I can kill it.
Yeah.
My play style when I get late into RPGs with there's a team, you have Final Fantasy X, you haven't played too much in it, but that's 3 characters, and I kind of treat it as if the main character became the support character. I had a character who was about to always dealt heavy damage, another character that always dealt heavy magic, and I just had the main character of Final Fantasy X casting haste on everyone to make them go faster, healing, and that was it. So to me, it was almost I have Barrett just using maximum overdrive all the time and his triangle, and I have Cloud doing his Infinity's End, and then Crossbeam, and a couple others over and over again. And I'm gonna be as Aerith, just laying down spells where I can pinpoint who I want to attack at a time. That's how I kind of like to play, but at the same time, though, I can't just not play as Cloud. I mean,
big boy have sword.
Materia system's very good, and it allows you to not feel like you wasted time with the strategy, because you can take those pieces and apply them somewhere else.
I was a little worried about it. It's like in the very beginning parts of the game, I'm like, oh no, like I'm gonna have to, because that was my one thing I didn't like too much with Nier Automata. That took me a while as well. I don't have as much time to play games either, so like if I have to spend like 35 minutes on just each character's loadout and all that, and it's like I don't want to have to think about that stuff too much. Like, yeah, I'll mess with it here and there, but I don't want to have to do it as often. I will say that like I feel like I did do it a lot, but it didn't feel like I was like scrapping everything and starting over because I didn't like anything. Like it was just like minor changes, and I never really felt like, besides maybe Hell House and Sephiroth, I didn't really feel like I had to really make many changes.
Hell House is definitely a difficulty spike, like in the curve. It definitely jumps to Hell House, like, straight up. Also, apparently on hard mode, so there was a side quest in chapter 14 where you go in this like arena near Aerith's house, this like just circular wherever, and you fight a Tonberry, a little green dude in a hood with a knife.
Yeah, I did that one. Yeah.
The ones that one hit KO you.
Yeah.
On hard mode, apparently Hell House just spews Tonberries out, so they're
serious?
also around. Yes.
Fuck that. No,
Hell House is definitely a difficulty spike, because Hell House is one of the most memorable enemies in the original game.
I have to look it up how he looked like in the first game.
And he's not a boss. He is the reason why he's so memorable. Hell House is just a regular ass enemy with regular health and stats that you can find in the collapsed subway, which in the original game is just one screen. It's not a dungeon, it's just one screen. And it's so memorable because you'd be fighting, bandits or whatever, robots, and then there's this fucking house, and you can bump it. It's not like a unique thing. It's only on that one screen, but there's multiple of it. You can, if you ran around a whole bunch, you could fight multiple. And it's just goofy looking house. And I remember playing this game on my PSP as a kid, because I didn't play it on the PlayStation back in the day. But I played it on my PSP, and I'm like, I'm super moody, and I want to take this as a serious Final Fantasy, and it's cool and serious, and Cloud is cool, and I don't just this fucking goofy house, get this shit out of here. So even then, I remembered it, and I had no idea Hell House was going to be a boss. So when the two MCs are like, it's Hell House, I'm like, holy shit.
I was going to say, I wish I was there when like you first saw it. You probably were like, what the
I'm like, oh my, and the reactions of Cloud and Aerith are perfect. It's like, it's a house.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw it, and I'm like, what? Okay, like, and like, I know you told me ahead of time, like, there's some anime BS in here, you just gotta let it slide. And I'm totally okay with anime BS, like, generally speaking. Like, obviously, if it's like so over the top and like nothing makes sense to me, then I kind of say it's just bad. But like, this is like, that's anime like BS to me, where it's just like, but good anime BS is that like,
but they didn't make it seem as if like it was something you were to expect.
Yeah, just like
the reactions are like, it's a fucking house.
It's just like fuck what you thought. It's a house with arms, maybe,
and a head
or something.
It's a hell house. What does that mean?
And they never explain it, and that's what I love about it.
Because the original game doesn't explain it either. It's just a fucking weird enemy.
So I wonder when they're making this, they're like, what if we made the Hell House a boss? Like, I wonder if that's
exactly it, because this game is so memorable to fans, and Hell House is such a meme to be like your super moody Final Fantasy, here's this goofy house, how does this make sense? It's memorable, right? The people making this game felt the same way. So yeah, they made it it's a set piece for all intents and purposes. That is a set piece. Everything with Walmart is completely different. All of those characters are brand new besides Don Corneo. Every single one of them. This Coliseum is brand new. So to me, the Coliseum feels like they made it just to set up Hell House. Like, that's how special they kind of treated it.
And I will say, like, in terms of positives, like even though it has like we're kind of moving away from what we were just talking about, but
I do have one more boss I want to talk about.
I was gonna say
on.
like just like how you're saying like it's so serious. Like I like that they did a good job, I think, in the story of having like this. Yeah, it's serious. Like the world can end. You know, there's this, but also like there's, you know, minor like villains and stuff. But at the same time, it like doesn't take itself too seriously at points to the where like it's like a. I had that like Avengers. That's the closest thing I can describe it. Like you know, like oh, there's like aliens on Earth, and like if you really thought about that on a like in a realistic way,
it would be horrible.
You'll be like, this breaks, you know, everything we thought of about
right.
And also like Iron Man, like,
and they all speak English though.
Yeah, and
so,
there's this
you know
God. I guess my God isn't real. You know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. And like what I always liked about Avengers is that it didn't take itself so seriously, even though at moments it could be serious. You know what I mean? Like I think you know.
I think this game does a really good job
of doing it.
So the original game came out in 1997, and then 6 years later, I think it was 6, they announced we're doing a compilation of Final Fantasy VII because we kind of really need money, and this is our most popular thing we've ever made. So we want to just make movies and books and anime and side games and maybe sequels. They never actually did to capitalize on this stuff. And when they did that, they decided that they wanted to take so you have characters in a story, and oftentimes most, if not all, of your characters go through an arc where they start off one way and they end a different way. But and I've heard this explained I'm stealing this. This isn't something I thought of. An example would be Toy Story, right? That first movie isn't really a Woody story, it's a Buzz Lightyear story. He goes through an entire arc.
Yeah.
His arc is done. After that movie, he has no growth, so they always just reset him to a different part in his arc. In the second one, it's another Buzz that thinks he's, you know, the real one, and he's in the way. In the third game, he gets his memory wiped, and you know, or the third movie rather, right?
Yeah.
They kind of did that with Cloud, where a part in VII Remake, or it's a part in the original 1997 game, Final Fantasy VII, he is very self-hating, down, a martyr, but also he needs to be strong, and also shuts everyone out. And the demographic for these types of games are teenagers
who always feel
like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I ended up not liking Final Fantasy 12 when I played that back in the day. I started up, gave it 2, maybe 3 hours, and it's these shitty orphan kids, and they're so annoying, and I hate them. And then I learned that the original story was about a 35-year-old man trying to protect a princess, and he's failing and whatnot. And that was the early drafts. And then Square executives said, no, our games are for teenagers. Put teenagers in this story. So they kind of ruined it that way. So they always put Cloud in that state whenever they go forward. When he's in Kingdom Hearts, he's moody. When he's in the fighting games, he's moody. He hates himself. This Final Fantasy VII movie, Advent Children, he hates himself. You know, like, it sucks. This game wants to remind you that no, while he thinks he's a badass, he's also an idiot. And they also clown on him a bunch, you know? That's what I think.
And he doesn't let anybody in. But they like him anyways, and even
they could see past his bullshit.
You were talking about like relationships earlier with like the artists, like how who they preferred Cloud with. Like me, I'm like, Cloud, you don't have to even choose nobody. Like everyone thirsting over you, and you're just like, I'm like, Cloud, bruh, like enjoy this, man.
There are good reasons. I want to say good reasons, but there are reasons why he's kind of like that, which we'll get into. Before we move on to other things, I do want to talk about one more boss that was a regular enemy that, because it was so well known on the internet, infamous, that they made it a boss. And it's Eligor. It is the final boss in the area, in the train graveyard area. So there's 2 bosses in there. There's just the big ghost thing, which that one's new for this game. And then at the end of the train graveyard, you fight basically the Grim Reaper on a chariot.
Yeah.
with the scythe.
I mean, I'm a big Halloween dude. Like, I love anything spooky, and like that's probably my favorite part of the game. Like, and it was back to back, right? Because you had the ghost in like the
Yeah, and then you
computer
run a
room,
little bit,
run a
and
little
then
bit,
you
and
fight
I'm like
Elagor.
again. I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
mad though, because these guys look sick, and I actually like the Grim Reaper dude more for sure. Like, I love
Yeah.
that chariot that he's on or whatever.
They made him a big deal, not as big a deal as Hell House, but they made him a big deal because in the original game, just like Hell House, he was a regular enemy that you found on one screen, except Elagor wasn't goofy or funny. He was very rare, and he had an item. He had a weapon for Aerith that you could steal. It's exclusive to him and him alone, and it's the strongest weapon that any character can have for a good chunk of the game is off of him, and it's for your character that should never go into combat. In the original, like, they made Aerith better in terms of wanting to play with her in Remake than the original. She is mainly there to use spells, which cost MP, which basically is a resource that you don't really want to spend too much on, so you're not going to fight with her too much, and to heal.
Yeah.
So, like, in here, like, they actually, like, she attacks in Remake, and it doesn't use any resources, which is why, like, they made her a lot better. And she has also all these buffs and things she can do, like the wards you can put on the ground. It's like, oh, if you're standing in the circle, you cast 2 spells for the price of 1. That kind of stuff.
Looking at old pictures of him, and it's cool how they like made the updates to him and just made him.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, like, he's the
red
only
eyes
boss.
there, yeah.
He's the only boss in Remake that has a steal that's something you can only get from the boss, and it's her staff, and the bladed staff it was called in the original, and I don't remember what it's called in Remake, but yeah, it's him. Like, they're like, yes, he is infamous because people would spend. I spent, when I was playing, 20 minutes on that one screen running around just trying to get him to show up. And then you had to steal from him, you know what I mean? It wasn't even guaranteed. I had to let him beat the shit out of myself, Tifa, and Aerith so that I can eventually just steal a weapon from him, you know? So there's a lot of bosses that are brand new, but those are the only 2 bosses that I'm like, this is very obviously, like, they looked at the original game and were like, we need to elevate this. We need to make these moments.
Yeah. And it's just like, I guess I'll save it because we're doing negatives. There's like one, like, as much as I liked those 2 bosses, there's a negative I had with like that whole part too.
Well, I mean, you might as well go for it.
I was just gonna say that like as much as I liked like how it was like doesn't take itself too seriously. The one thing I didn't like personally. I mean, you could probably be the only one maybe who thinks this way, but like. Because the whole not graveyard, it was like the train yard there, but there was ghosts, it's haunted, right? And like, I just felt like there was no urgency. Like, they kept talking about, oh, we need to get back, and it just dragged a little bit too much. And I was just like, and then there was times where like, oh, we have to help not help the ghosts, but just like, we're spending way too much time. Like, y'all need to go. Like, why aren't we running? Like, and then another boss.
You heard, because that happens right after Walmart, where you learn through Don Corneo that Shinra is going to drop a fucking plate, killing everyone on the plate and below the plate, just to get at Avalanche, and they know how, and they know the severity. But yeah, it is kind of. Well, I wouldn't say they're strolling through the train graveyard. They are more concerned about people that are already dead than people that will die.
Yeah, and I was just like...
So, you're right on that.
That was like one part I just didn't like, and then it just, like... maybe because I did play it like a couple nights in a row where I feel like I was just in that area, and like there was so much dialogue that just kept... Like, they kept saying, oh, we need to get back, and I'm like, I hope they're okay, and I'm like, well, let's go then. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, that story or whatever you want to call that like chapter, that's all new. I mean, yeah, you do go like,
you have to.
I'll talk about like differences, but like, excuse me, sorry. You get into the sewers by falling from Don Corneo's trap in his room. The sewer is one screen, then you end up in the train graveyard, which is 2 screens, and then you're at the pillar in the original game. That is like 7 minutes. in the original game. The sewer was not a dungeon. Train graveyard is not a dungeon. It is like a puzzle where you have to like activate the trains to move them so you can make a path on and through them, but like it's 2 screens, and then so like the urgency of it does feel like it feels like if that was in real life, it took less than a half an hour to get back to the action.
Yeah, it felt like
so like the urgency of like, oh no, they're gonna do it. Let's get there. We're there.
Yeah, like I don't know. I did like the bosses though, and that's what like kept me in it, I think. But if it was just like more dungeony stuff where it was like, here's a puzzle, here's a little like mini game, I would have been like, I think a little more disappointed with it. But
mini games all throughout this game, which I'm so glad that they did that. There are aspects of old Squaresoft games that this game does, which I'm so happy about. One of them is the fact that yes, there are lots of mini games. Tetsuya Nomura is the co-director of this game. He wasn't the director of 7. He wasn't the writer of 7. That was his first big kind of break. He was like a playtester for 6, and then he became the character artist for 7. So he's the one that decided the main character is going to be a dude with a sword as big as he is, and his best friend is going to be Mr. T with the machine gun for a hand, and his girlfriend's going to be, in a skimpy dress with big boobs. That was him. His very childish drawings back in the day. Although I think they updated them pretty well for this. He was a character designer, but he became kind of like the Square guy. Mm-hmm. The original Final Fantasy dudes all left. The creator himself left. The artist left, and the composer for the music left. So like he kind of, while he wasn't in charge of any of the main games themselves, he was kind of like the Square guy. He's the Kingdom Hearts guy, which is how I know this man. This man has ruined and made my life. He said, I don't know in what context this was for. I think it might have been for Kingdom Hearts 3. Someone in an interview was asked, why is there a bunch of mini games, or why are certain things in these games made into mini games when they don't have to be? And he said that, and I forget who told him, but someone told him that a Final Fantasy game needs to be an everything game. It needs to, we can't just have an action where you're doing this. You need to be making it into a game of some sort. The motorcycle was in the original game. It was only in the end there, though. You didn't have that Chapter 4 thing with Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse.
Yeah,
but that was that was a thing you did once.
I was going to say, that was them showing you early on, oh, this is probably going to come back. But then, you said you liked the mini games. Some of them I liked, some of them I just didn't really care for, and I felt like they're just...
I don't think they're all amazing, but the fact that they're there is cool.
But I did like the motorcycle.
I noticed you never got the trophy for the darts minigame.
I did it once, and then the story kept progressing, and I just never got a chance to go back.
Yeah, I got a perfect score in that, but yeah, there's a bunch. I mean, the sit-ups and pull-ups.
I did those though, and you can. Yeah, I went hard in the paint for those, and my hand was hurting. All right.
Yes.
I got the gamer cramps. All right.
Yep. The sit-ups was in the original. There's a mini game in the original that's simply a one-time thing where you're given this girl CPR who drowned on a beach.
What?
That's it. Yeah, it's just press circle, which I guess since on the PS4 version they swapped circle and X again, I guess it's X. It's just like a bar fills up, you press the button before it fills up completely. Just do it over and over again. And then you do another mini game where you jump on a dolphin to boost you up higher.
This is the same.
It's dumb and weird.
This is the same game.
It's the same game. A
dolphin. When is there...
Late in the game, there is a gigantic spoiler, which I will talk about in this episode. And after that, to combat his feelings, Cloud snowboards.
Bro.
And it's a snowboarding game. It's better than Cool Borders, that game that you played that a bit on your PS1 Classic. It's that mini game is still better than that entire game. So that's what they kind of wanted to do.
Not good.
Cool Borders sucks ass. Why was that on there and not a Tony Hawk game? I don't understand.
Cool Borders.
Yeah. I forgot where I was going, but I like the mini games. I'm going to go on to my next couple positives, and they'll be kind of joined into one. You and I have been playing The Last of Us Part 2 recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you and I finished it. I know you're
Close. I'm good
playing
close.
it.
Yeah.
You're playing it. Don't tell me where you're at now because you're on the episode. But you're deep into that game. And you and I will both agree. I'm making you agree with me right now that The Last of Us Part 2 story is acted a good 30 or 40 times better than 7 Remake. So keep that frame. Like,
yes.
When I don't want to sound hyperbolic here, but I think the acting and the story and how it's presented in 7 Remake is legitimately extremely good. And it's graded on a scale compared to other Square stuff. 100%. Like, so I said Tetsuya Nomura, he's like the Square guy, essentially. He always likes to roll with this one writer named Nojima. He's basically
not related to Kojima, right?
No, Nojima. Kojima's the last name.
I know. I'm joking.
Yes,
it's a cousin of Kojima.
Yeah. It's funny. There is a musician that works with Square whose last name is Kojima, and there's an artist at Konami whose last name is Kojima, and they're like my favorite game artist and favorite music composer. So maybe I like Kojima's, and none of them are related. But Nojima is basically the Square writer for a lot of stuff. He writes Kingdom Hearts. He helped write 7. He wrote all of 7's extra things, and he helped write this game. Nojima and Tetsuya Nomura have a style where everything in the story, the scenes, and especially the dialogue is very extremely stilted. Characters are standing around in a circle, talking one at a time, emoting as they're talking, and then standing and waiting for the other person. That sounds extremely boring to explain that to you, but that's how Kingdom Hearts works. All your villains in their same outfit, standing in a circle, talking one after another. Square loves making proper nouns, and it loves making characters vague enough so that you have questions about what they were even talking about. They love doing that shit over and over and over again. The cutscenes are directed often the blocking of them is very straight on, straightforward. Not a lot of cuts back and forth. Camera is going to move around. It's kind of here, and now it's over here, and now we're done. Like, that's it. That's our cutscene. So compared to all that, this game is leaps and bounds better. It's exciting. A lot of the dialogue feels very natural and like someone would say, and some of it's actually really funny. Like, I would legitimately laugh at some parts, not because I'm grading it on a curve, because I actually think it's kind of funny. Like, there's a part early...
Barrett's one-liners that I wrote down, they're just goofy, and I'm just like, yeah, sure. I agree.
Like, there's a part at the beginning where, in the first chapter, with that first bombing mission, Cloud is a dick pretty much the whole game for the most part.
Yeah, he comes around a little bit, but...
Especially in the beginning, when he doesn't know these people, and he doesn't want to know any of these people. And Barrett is a very charismatic terrorist leader, and so he's talking about the planet and this and that, and they're walking, and it's just him, Cloud, and Jesse at the time. And Barrett just goes, "So, what are you, 20-something?" And Cloud is like, "Oh no, first class." And, it goes, it doesn't go in the 20s. And here it says, "I meant your age, not your goddamn rank." And I actually laughed at that part. I'm like, yeah, no, that feels very natural. And then, like, it also kind of shows that, Cloud is kind of dumb. He's not this super badass bright person.
He's a little jarheady. That's what I would say.
And then there's another part later on in my least favorite section of the game, Chapter 17's long corridors of experiments in Hojo's laboratory. That was all needlessly long. It was kind of cool to split the party up and you going back and forth, but that was super needlessly long.
And that goes back to the pacing issues I had with, like...
that was bad.
I'm like, don't we have to get out of here, now? And it's like, but you gotta do
and
my
it almost
experiments. And it's like, what?
I knew where the story was going, and even then I'm like, so what are we doing? Because I know they dropped the part where they got captured and put in jail. They got rid of that part by this point. That's not in Remake. So what are they doing again? Are they trying to find Genova's body? I thought we know that Sephiroth took it. I'm confused. But there's a part in there where you're playing as Barrett and Cloud, or Cloud and Barrett, and then you hop over to Tifa and Aerith, the boys and the girls, and Cloud and Barrett's, I think, final section alone, together alone, leads up to this big circular metal door. And then you hop over Tifa and Aerith, and they go through. And some of their one of their parts of their section there, at their last section, together alone, they briefly see on a computer monitor that Cloud and Barrett are at that door. And they know that they're at the door, so they're going to open up or whatever. And that brief 1 second is just them being dumbasses, where Cloud hits the door with his sword, just clanks off of it, and Barrett is just kicking it.
Yeah,
like it's not budging. And that was funny because the timing of it was so brief that it was like, that's funny. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't in a previous Square thing that would have been drawn out longer, and the one Barrett would have been like, oh, I don't know, the door's not opening, you know. So I think the rating is actually very good.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I think
was this game in Japanese at all? Like, was this like, did they have different did they have Japanese actors? Like, was it in Japanese first and then English translated?
I'm sure it was in Japanese first and then English. They have a team of localizers and translators. So there's a difference between translating something and localizing something.
Yeah.
And you can straight up translate something and it might not make sense. I like to point out an example from Final Fantasy V where there is a pun, and the pun makes no sense in English, so they changed it to a different pun. This bad guy is trying to get all these magic weapons, and one of them is the legendary sword Excalibur, King Arthur's sword, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a 16-bit video game, so you have a certain pixel grid for a character, kanji characters, and the kanji combination for Excalibur is two things. But if you add one little pixel in this one spot, it changes the word. Instead of Excalibur, it's called Excalibur. But because it's such a tiny, hard-to-see thing, that the character is confused. So when he uses Excalibur, he doesn't realize he's using a fake sword, and that's the joke. That doesn't make any sense in English.
Yeah.
So they changed it to Excalibur, as in it's a poor version of the sword. And it's not as good, but it's also, you kind of understand. It's not something else entirely. It's the same kind of gist.
Yeah.
So that's what a localizing
I'm just
team
saying, because the
does.
animations never looked, like, dubbed. Like, so I'm guessing that they had...
It's lip synced for sure. Even in the actual CG cutscenes themselves, which are brief. Like, there's a couple later on. Basically, you can tell whenever... I don't know what sword you use for the most part. For Cloud, you can always tell if it jumps back to his Buster Sword.
Yeah, I did see that, and that was one like small little nitpick where I'm like, I mean, I get it. Like, you want it to look. I'd rather have like, because there was, like you said, like the cut scenes which looked super nice, and then like there was the non-fighting cut scenes. You know what I mean? Like there was like
the in-engine cut
scenes. I think they should have stuck with that. Honestly, the entire game. Like, I would have been totally okay.
The in-engine ones were really good. And a couple of the actual CG cutscenes, at first I didn't realize that they were, just because their engine, and they're running on Unreal Engine 4, which is one of the reasons why this game didn't take a decade to make, is because they wisened up, and Kingdom Hearts 3 taught them they just fucking use what everyone else uses, and you can make a game within 3 years. It's so good that, like, I mean, it looks better than the Final Fantasy VII movie, which we will watch at some point in the future. The actual, just the video game, not let alone the CG itself, looks even better.
That's what I'm saying. I just personally think they could have just stuck, and I would have been fine. I would have been fine with that. Like, I'm not
Square does have a legacy with CG cutscenes, though, that I think people would complain if they didn't do one. But I agree with you. Like, just to get that, like... I know it's stupidly nitpicky, but, like, yeah, have the sword be the same. Because, like, yeah, in older video games, I understand, but, like, it is 2019, 2020, you know? Yeah.
Maybe just have, like, it be the same sword. I know, it's super small, so it wasn't like, oh, well, this game sucks, but you know what I mean?
So I want to move on to my next and final positive before we talk about some differences between the original and the last game. Unless you have more positives.
I mean, I have
like
some negative stuff, but it's super.
But my last main positive is the Walmart section, which is a highlight of the game. I don't know what your opinions are on Walmart, but this whole section was completely redone. The original section was transphobic. I don't know if I want to call it transphobic or gay panic. It's one of the two. One of the bigotry stuff. Not good. And they made it something that it's worth celebrating, while also not necessarily making the bad guy in that section, Don Corneo, not a skeevy weirdo person, you know? Like, they kept all of that stuff in. They just made it so his reaction to Cloud being a man isn't freaking the fuck out. He just says, "So you're a man, eh?" And that's it. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
you know, like, he was still turned on, you know what I mean?
I did like the dancing, the bees there.
Yes. And, you know, that section of me, and, fuck, what's his name? Rodeo something. God damn it. I knew it off the top of my head. He has a different name in Japanese, too. Because it's like a...
Oh, you mean the...
well, his Japanese name is Anyan Kunyan. It doesn't write down his English name. Something Rodeo, whatever. But the dancer guy, the main guy there.
Yeah.
That was the one part where I'm like, well, I would be surprised if they didn't seek out queer folk and actually had them, give them pointers and consult on this section and that character. Because he doesn't feel like an embarrassment or making fun. Obviously, they're not trying to make fun of it. But it doesn't feel like, oh, well, this is good enough as straight white Japanese dudes, you know, like, this is good. Like, looks normal to me. Like, it actually feels to me as if they actually sought out the opinions of people that weren't like them, that this touches on and got their approval of, you know?
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like to me.
Was there any people pissed about that?
People...
Like, I know you're more...
There are people pissed that there are changes in general. I don't think anyone is upset.
Like, no one...
Because
like, I'm saying, they compared to, like... We were talking about Last of Us, like, oh, Ellie's gay. Oh, what the hell?
No,
because...
none of that. I think it's mainly because they knocked Walmart out of the park and made it a gigantic, awesome thing. That to say you didn't like it would to say you want to go back to what it was, which was a boring... So in the original... Tifa is still she volunteers to be a bridal candidate because she knows Corneo has information about Shinra, and there's a plan or a secret about them striking back on Avalanche. So she does that, but Cloud and Aerith don't know that, so they want to go in and rescue her, but they only let women in. So Aerith tells Cloud, "You're gonna have to dress up as a girl if we want to get in, or I'm gonna go alone." And so that section in the original is... the Walmart looks nothing like the way it is in the remake. In the remake, it's like this carnival / like red light district / this downtown like awesome
like
area.
Suburb, but not suburb. Sorry, like not like downtown, almost like Fells Point. Only us will know.
Yeah,
this.
where like there are houses here.
Yeah,
and you know,
but it's kind of like
also,
a nightlife party.
Yeah,
there's
straight up.
Stuff
and
going
like,
on in little
I love that the music
is
the same, but where you go changes the instruments being used.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. Original Nier did that. That's nothing like that. In the original, it looks like the Sector 7 slums, essentially. Just shitty buildings. And people, and seethy people, not necessarily a fun and exciting place. But there are shops there, and a lot of them are represented in Remake. Like the weapon shop that just says machine gun above it, you know? That's in the original. And that you have to go and find an outfit for Cloud to wear in the original. So you find a dressmaker. Oh, I only make dress for women, but this is a fun, exciting thing for me. That's weird. Yeah, and everyone likes to point out that that's weird that Cloud wants to dress up as a girl, but I guess... You're one of those, huh? Is something he says. Well, there are others like you up at the gym. So you need to get a wig. So you go up to the gym, and there's all the muscle dudes. You saw them. And Jules, which is, I guess, their leader or whatever, the one that kicks their asses the most at all their workouts, I guess.
Yeah.
Is, in the original, is a man that wears the wig to look pretty, but acts like a girl, which obviously in 2020 is fine. But all of the other dudes call, and they don't. This person doesn't have a name in the original, but I'll call him Jules because that's what they're called in remake. They call him Big Bro, which I'm sure in Japanese it was probably called Oni-chan. But like in America we don't have like a word for that. So Big Bro, to point out like, oh no, this isn't a woman, because again, low poly character models you wouldn't necessarily know, so that's why they're telling you, no, this is a man, get it? And you have to out squat him to get the wig. Okay, fine, but you need something else. I forget what else you need. So you go to the Honeybee Inn, which in remake is this cool nightclub, essentially.
Yeah.
In the original, it's a brothel, which I guess are fine. I guess if no one's being forced to work there against their will to pay off debts,
yeah, and
it is and it is a job,
yep.
Then that's fine.
Sex work is work.
Generally speaking, brothels are always portrayed as your family owes me money,
or
you
like,
know what I mean?
Yeah. You can't go anywhere else because you're trash, exactly. And blah blah blah. I own you.
But,
yeah.
But the Honeybee Inn is shown as a very cool brothel where just people go. And so you go in there, and this woman gives you two options, two rooms. There is the group room, and I don't know what the other room is called because the PS4 remake, or not remake, the PS4 port of the original 1997 game decided that they wanted to bleep out all the swear words. They're swearing like crazy in the original. Barrett calls people motherfucker, ass, shit, like all these things. Tifa calls a couple people retards in the original, so I'm glad they got rid of that. I think she calls Barrett and Cloud that. But the other room is just this 4 asterisks room, which could be fuck, whatever. And if you it doesn't matter which one you choose, but if you choose the one I did that I remember, and I think it might end up being the same room regardless of what option you pick, is a room where you go in and you don't know what to expect. You're in the room because you're told you can get something here. I forget, maybe it was earrings, maybe it was shoes, a necklace, whatever. You need a wig, a dress, and this other thing in order to get in. There's other optional stuff you can get because, like Remake, it doesn't have to be Cloud that he picks. It can be the others. So if you have the extra stuff, it's guaranteed to get Cloud. But at the very minimum, you do need to go to Honeybee Inn. You don't know what's going on in this room. And then the door opens and maybe 10 super jack dudes come in. And it is the very old, especially Japanese, stereotype of gay people are also creepy pedophiles. So they call him like little boy, and they all sit in a hot tub together, and you don't know what's going on. And they're telling Cloud to sit on my lap. Sit on my lap. Come cuddle with me.
Oh,
it's
boy.
all.
I'm glad they didn't put that in.
It's meant to. Cloud's reaction isn't get the fuck away from me. He is very confused, but the reaction is more of I'm not a homo kind of confusion, and not who am I or why does this weird me out? It's very bad. It's very bad.
I'm glad they didn't put any of that in there. They just did the dance sequence.
Yes,
because that was a lot more fun.
Yes, which is like a giant middle finger to anyone that actually thought it was funny what the original game did. Be like, no, and Cloud is gonna boogie with an obviously queer person, and they're gonna both like it, even though Cloud doesn't want to at first.
Well, that's like that's what I like about his slight character arc. I think in this, I think he still has a little bit more to go. Is that he, at this point, I think in the game too, he's starting to open up a little bit more, and even though his like soldier, code or whatever is telling them nope, not to I can't get involved with these people, I can't like anything, I have to be by the book kind of person. And I just like and
what opens him up to that is Aerith. Everyone sees through Cloud's bullshit and they like him anyway, which is neat. I think a lot of teenagers might not understand, and the original is like this as well. Same thing with Final Fantasy VIII. They loved that so much that they made 8's main character be like that the whole game. Some people think, oh, if I'm an asshole, people will like me anyway. It makes me cooler. Like, no, you do have to be like an actual good person. Don't just judge us off this video game. You don't have to be an asshole in real life.
He's more of an asshole in the beginning, but then he starts being like, he's just very cold, I think, towards he doesn't want to get attached because he's like, oh, this is just business. This is this
Yeah.
business. Is it involved with people he knows? Yes, but he's like, I'm just here to get my coin, and that quickly turns into like, no, I actually do care about what they're fighting for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And Aerith is the one that opens him up. He doesn't have to bring her back home, and he doesn't care about going on a date with Aerith, but she makes fun of him, in a lot of different ways. Or he'll be like, stay behind me, and she'll be like, yeah, so I can watch your back. Be like, no, like, you can't push me away, you know what I mean? Or like, the monsters attack them at one point, and they go after Cloud. She's like, wow, she's really good. And like, yeah, they always know if to go after the stronger prey. And at one point later, they attack Aerith, and she's like, oh wow, they are learning because they're going after the stronger prey, which is supposed to say her. Like, she's making fun of him in an I like you kind of way. It's flirting, but it breaks his mold in such a way that it opens him up. And it's great. And you're right, he does have a lot of ways to go, because obviously there is the full game's worth of story to progress through. I would say in the original, he is more outspoken in this early parts because he's a bit more of a know-it-all asshole. He's not an asshole. He doesn't put people in their place, so to speak, but it's like, yeah, I got it. I know what I'm doing. Yeah, okay. And then he fucks up, and then people call him out on it
more than verbally say things. I mean, early on he was kind of, like I said, kind of a dick, but later on he still had that, like, I'm just here, and I know, like, no matter what happens, I'll be fine. Like,
yeah,
I'm worried
it's
about
not me.
you.
I'm worried about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think the whole Walmart section is really good. Apparently, the original Walmart was. I know you've never played a Yakuza game, but I know you've seen gameplay or whatever, and I know you're interested in it. Yakuza takes place in Shinjuku, Japan, which is a downtown. I mean, it's where the Yakuza kind of stuff can happen. And the Walmart section, all those not mini games. Well, I guess some of the mini games, yeah, but all of the side quests are very Yakuza-esque missions and quests to go on, because Walmart in the original was based off of Shinjuku. Which is like how Yakuza takes place there. So when people walk away and they're like, wow, it's weird and great that Final Fantasy all of a sudden becomes Yakuza in a section. But that's exactly how it is. I think that whole part is really good. Do you have anything else, positives or negatives to talk about before I talk about differences between the
originals? I was going to say that some ones that are coming to mind, probably my biggest negative I had was... Like, so yeah, I had trouble with the pacing right before we got to the plate dropping there. And like you have to go up to the, whatever you call it, the tower.
The pillar, I think they called it.
Right. And so Jesse and Biggs are killed, right? And we find out later that Biggs is A-okay somehow. I guess I just didn't, like, I mean, for other people it was like sad or whatnot, but I just didn't care enough. Like, I kind of was just like, oh, that sucks, sorry. But like I just feel like I didn't play enough with them. Like, I kind of wish they were, and we get the whole in the beginning, like Jesse,
chapter 4 there.
Yeah, Jesse and Cloud are on the bike together, and then Wedge and Biggs on the other bike, and like she kind of, I don't know if it's flirting or what, like makes fun of him a lot or whatnot. But
she does offer to have Cloud come back later so they can fuck, but she's just messing with them. You get that option where you're like, no, sorry.
No, I don't know if I might have missed it.
Yeah. It's after that whole thing where Wedge says it's all a game to her, don't fall for it, and then you lead her back to her place, and she's like,
right. Yeah. She's like, do you want to come inside or something like that?
Yeah, like, all my roommates are going to be gone later. Do you want to come back? Yeah.
And that's and then once again, Cloud, I'm like, dude, these people are like,
I will say,
bro.
Everyone always talks about Cloud and Tifa or Cloud and Aerith.
And
this
Jesse,
game made it Cloud and Jesse, and I'm going to tell you why. In the original game, Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge are just exposition fodder. They are there to make sure that it isn't just Tifa, Barrett, and Cloud talking, so that someone else can open up a door, someone else can ask a question about why we're doing this, or why is this like this, so then Tifa can explain it, or that's all they're there for. So when the pillar drops and they die, you don't really, I mean, yes, you might care, Biggs and Wedge, by the way, are named after Star Wars characters. They did that in a lot in the early Final Fantasy games, where there's always a Biggs and a Wedge for some reason. They were pilots that die in the Death Star run.
I don't. But I think that does now. It's starting to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just.
So in the original, they you didn't really care, but then in this one, I actually did. I mean, I was like, number one, I was not expecting Biggs to be so hot. Like, apparently you don't agree.
I
was
don't
like,
know
wow,
if
he's just such a likable dude, huh?
I like more bigger dudes, I guess. Like, I'm not saying Barrett. Like, Barrett's a tank, but like,
there are some moments where Barrett stands next to Tifa and his hand is bigger than her head.
I don't know. I think he's like a 7 for me. I would say he's a 7.
I don't guess I'm just talking about his face. The man
has
a good
cute
facial, and he's just very nice and likable. I was expecting him to be an asshole, to be honest, but so yeah. And in this remake, I mean that chapter 4, where you fight the other dude on the motorcycle, Roche. He's brand new. He's not in the original.
He came out of nowhere, and I have more questions than answers with him, but it's fine. That's like anime BS, and I'm totally okay with. Where it's like,
yes, straight up,
yeah.
And I think he might come back in the sequel, but we'll talk about maybe how. There's a lot of parts that this remake added stuff, and it changed things, and all of them I think would be what they would have done back in the day if they wanted to expand Midgar like crazy. Everything with what's his name? Leslie, Don Corneo's the other dude in the sewer, and then like you learn his girlfriend left him, and he's brand new. Although I guess he's from some short story, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like all these characters, I feel like would have been there, and if they wanted to make this game back in the day and really expand on the story. And I think a lot of the new things that they added are ways in which that they can illustrate things in the sequels. And we'll get to that in a second. But do you have any final things to bring up before we talk about differences?
One of the main things I wanted to say was that like I felt I wanted more from Jesse and Biggs. Like we got a lot of Wedge, I felt like, but not enough of Jesse and Biggs. And maybe we'll get more of Biggs in the possible sequel. But I think their deaths would have been a little bit more impactful if I just got. Maybe it didn't help that I did play the game over a 2-month period, but I don't know. I wanted more out of that, and like when they died, I was like, oh, it sucks, and like, but I was kind of like, okay, let's save the day again, and then in a weird way, I'm one of those people. I'm a little weird, I think, in this is that I actually wanted Biggs to stay dead. Like, I like it when no one's safe.
There are consequences.
Yeah, that, like, and I guess the consequence you can say, oh, we lost one, but, like, take out 2. Like, okay, half the team is dead now. You know what I mean? Or maybe even take out Wedge as well. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
so that will be our first change. All 3 of them die on the pillar.
Okay. See, I might have been like that more. I've been like, okay,
we will go into these changes. I actually do want to bring up one more thing, because this isn't really part of the changes, but this is one of the things that I was going to say for later, but we'll bring up now. This game is like classic Square in that, just like how there's lots of minigames, there are lots of secret choices that you don't realize you're making or realize that outcomes are happening based off earlier actions. Classic thing in the original Final Fantasy VII is that there is an actual affection stat for Tifa, Aerith, another female character that's later in the game, and Barrett for Cloud. And whoever has the highest until a certain point in the game gets to go on a date with Cloud. And it is almost impossible to have Barrett be the person. That's why it's a trophy in the PS4 version, and I did get to go on the date with Barrett. But nowhere does it show you that's a stat. Nowhere do you know that it's tracking it unless you talk to someone else that said, wait a second, I went with Tifa. Why you went with Aerith? So it's different. And then you get a strategy guy that tells you, okay, here's how you get the date with Barrett. Mm-hmm. So that's the classic thing in the original. There's a lot of that stuff going on in here. So question for you. So one of the most powerful story moments in the game for me is we've saved Wedge, and we know that Marlene and now Wedge are at I forgot her name, but Aerith's mom's house. It starts with an E. Eleanor or something like that, whatever.
Yeah.
And Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett are staying the night, and then the next morning they're going to go rescue Aerith. And at night, Cloud gets up because he can't sleep, and he goes and walks outside into the garden. And what happens?
Sees a ghost of, not ghost, but like a Aerith, but it's like she's not there, like a Obi-Wan Kenobi ghost. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, yeah. In my game, Tifa was there, and she's crying. And Cloud consoles her. He opens up. And it also could be Barrett. It's different depending. Okay, so it's different depending on choices you made. Yes, some of them feel like they're a bit obvious, like when Tifa, Aerith, and Cloud fall into the sewers. Who do you talk to first to wake up?
What's funny?
I talked to Tifa. You probably talked to Aerith, maybe, but there's other things. No, what's funny is
I got to choose both because I died to the boss, so I picked the other one just to see if the dialogue was different. I didn't know if it had an impact or not, because earlier in the game you had to pick what Tifa wears, but then you never get to see her.
That's another thing we'll talk. Well, you do actually. It's the dress she wears at the bridal.
Okay. That's what I thought maybe, but it didn't click to me till later.
So later. you got a scene where it's a vision Cloud has of Aerith, and Aerith tells her don't fall in love with her, and I never actually saw that scene. I just heard about it. But the scene I got was Tifa, who is scared, who's crying and afraid, and Cloud opens up legitimately and embraces her, which gets this kind of the start that the game itself has later of a love thing going on between the two of them, maybe. And it's completely different. And I don't know what the Barrett scene is. It might be about him worried about his daughter, Marlene, or about, the fact that all of his comrades are dead. Well, the Wedge is alive, I guess. But, like there's actual consequences. Shinra really dropped the plate, Yeah, that scene is different depending on stuff you do.
Interesting.
Another thing is when you were fighting Sephiroth, Devin, who was in your party?
Tifa and Barrett.
Mine too, and that can be completely different. I had Aerith come in the cutscene. I don't think I would have beat. Yeah, and that stuff. Then those choices.
I love Aerith, but not against Sephiroth.
Not against Sephiroth.
I need to be aggro against him.
Yeah, so when you're fighting him, you fight him first alone as Cloud, and then another person joins, and then another person joins, and then once you beat him, or at least once his health is down,
the fourth person.
Then the fourth person comes up. Though it can be any order of the three of them, and it's based off of how often you swap to them, how often you use their limit breaks throughout the entire game itself, to kind of tailor. Like, yes, I personally use Tifa a lot. Apparently, I didn't use Aerith enough because she was my fourth person.
But because there's a good chunk of the game where it's her and Cloud.
Yeah, so that's also completely different. And then the dresses. What are their names? Tifa, Aerith, and Cloud. Each have 3 different dresses, and it's based off of side quests. So if there are 3 chapters where you can do side quests, chapter 3 is when you're with Tifa. If you do all of the side quests, she takes you back to her apartment and asks you what she should wear, because she wants to go out and on a night on the town. What should she wear? Those are your 3 choices right there. Do you remember what you picked?
I picked exotic because I'm an exotic person,
I did too, and she's wearing a Chinese dress.
Yeah.
If you pick, I think elegant, she's wearing a kimono, and if you pick mature, it's very mature. Let me just say it that way. Aerith's dress is determined on her Chapter 5 side quests, or I think it's Chapter 5? The chapter where you're in the Sector 5 slums and you're doing side quests with her, and it's just based off of how many you do. If you did them all in the Chapter 5,
yeah.
You get this. If you do them all, you get this super fancy red dress.
I got that one.
When she comes out and Cloud sees her for the first time, they're literally rolling out a red carpet.
And he's like, okay.
If you don't do any, she's in a very plain looking pink dress, and like a dog is in her way. She's like, it's like peeing or whatever.
I kind of wish they Cloud broke character and was just like, "Damn, girl," just
You
like
know,
out of nowhere. You're like, "Wait, what?"
like that cutscene's completely different, and then Cloud's dress is based off of the Walmart side quests. So now, Devin, who was giving you side quests in Walmart? Who was the person that said, "Oh, here are some leads on side quests"?
Boy, was it the hand girl?
It was the hand girl for you, because it could be a different person. That's the thing.
I think she was the one saying, "Oh, talk to this person."
There are two sets of side quests. Either Madame M, which is her, gives you the first set, or gives you a set of 3 side quests, or the leads on them, or Chocobo Sam gives you a set of 3. If you don't do any side quests, you get a boring Cloud dress. If you do Madame M's, you get one dress. If you do Chocobo Sam's, you get a different dress.
Like a black dress, and I think it was Madame M.
You probably did Chocobo Sam's then. Well, no, both of those dresses I think actually are mostly black.
I'm pretty sure it's MM because I remember we went there and she's like, "Oh, I'll fix you up right."
Okay, then yeah. Well, no, you do get the dress from her. It's confusing, but anyway, there are 2 sets of side quests, and you can't do both of them. So, and the choices of how you get the person to give you the side quest to be who they are is depending on random choices. Like, do you let Johnny, who's the red-haired dude that's fucking horny on main for Tifa all the time, like, do you indulge him a bit? When you do the coin flip thing with Chocobo Sam, what one do you pick?
Tails.
Like, all these things pick. I think I did Tails as well.
I've always picked Tails in real life too. Give it to me right now, I'll be like Tails every time.
Sure. I think I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter your odds, but yeah. So like the dresses are based off that as well. And there's other little things like that don't really matter, but they're cool in the sense that like nowhere does it tells you it's a choice that and yes, there are choices that you're making, but nowhere is it like this is important. This is going to change something.
Cloud will remember this.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
David Cage.
That was more Telltale, but I guess David Cage does that too.
I don't remember. Or I think it like gave you like a audio cue being like, "Oh, you made a choice."
Whoa. It's just cool stuff like that. That I think the game that I smiled when that happened. One more positive thing, I'm sorry, before we go into changes, is it's chapter 16. You're in the Shinra building, but man, you need to go up to like the 70th floor, and we're on floor number 1. Did you pick the stairs or the elevator?
You recommended the stairs, and
I recommended the stairs.
I did do the stairs,
and it was awesome. Wasn't it?
My hand was. I was actually like, not getting cramps, but like my hand was starting to get tired just from like going in circles. I didn't know it'd be that tiring, but I'm just like,
yes.
And at one point, I was starting to get like tired myself. That was my favorite
part in the original.
I'm like, man. A little nauseous here going in
I love
circles.
Like Cloud is keeping up pretty well, but those last like 20 or so, he's slowly starting to go up a little slower. Barrett is like dying. He's complaining. He says, "I want to go back. If you try to go back, Tifa will yell at you. Like, we went up all this way. What do you mean? What are you doing?" Like the music actually starts to warble and wob because just like in real life, if you're running or getting a workout, you're kind of not focusing on what's around you, and it's coming in and out of focus.
I don't think like with me and you went
good
right now to try to like climb up 70 stairs. It'd be rough. Like
I would easily make it. No, I want to say easily. I would make it to 20. I don't know if I can make it farther, but
I'd probably be like super aggressive at first. I'd try to like sprint up as far as I could, and then I'll walk the rest just to get that like adrenaline going, maybe. But
just kind of get the first ones over with.
Yeah.
So if you, I actually redid that chapter because I missed Tifa's final weapon at the fucking part where you have to play as her and you have to like shimmy around and like monkey bar around. So I replayed that chapter after I finished, and I picked the elevator. The elevator is they get in the elevator, and hey, it's an elevator, so other people that work there need to get in too. The first couple times it's soldiers, and you fight them. And then like the humorous payoff is Cloud's ready for the next one. The door opens. He goes to swing the sword, and it's just a businesswoman standing there frozen in fear.
Jesus.
That this 6-foot sword is 3 inches from her face.
I like how like There's moments when like you're interacting like with like the business like lounge section, and like no one's questioning like, aren't those like
that
the
they're
terrorists?
dressed like these. Yeah,
Like,
they're so recognizable.
Like you have a giant. Even if they're not, there's no terrorists. I'd be concerned if there was a man walking around
With a gun for a hand.
Yeah, and then a dude with a giant sword. I don't know. I'd be like, what's going on here? It's like 9:00 at night.
But I guess
what are they doing?
I also get kind of the impression that the people working at Shinra Building don't. Well, I'm sure some of them can question, hey, are we destroying the planet? Like, they're not that dumb. Might not know the full extent of who or what Avalanche is, you know? But
hey, it's just a paycheck. Just a paycheck, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
Pay
hey,
your bills.
they are. Some of these people are trying to make the world a better place. You know, they're going
I like
about
the
the wrong
museum
way.
section there.
That's all completely new, and I love that it's like a shitty corporations tour.
Yeah, like,
you know,
here at Ford,
now we're gonna learn.
You know,
yeah, exactly.
We use,
and I love that some of them
wheels.
just aren't working. You know, like, sorry, this exhibit's broken. you know,
who's the girl with the who's in Shinra with the, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Scarlet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
So, her and Heidegger, who is the security lead,
Yeah,
in the original game, are Team Rocket-esque villains. Not in the sense of how they get in and out of your way, but more in the sense that they are very, very characterized by their laugh. Heidegger has a ha 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 where he leans back, and Scarlet has the very traditional Japanese woman laughing where she puts the back of her hand up to her mouth and oh ho ho ho. It's that
Yeah.
kind of thing. That's really all of their personality traits. So I love that this game
I just like how she
had it really
was,
going on, and she's sadistic and she's using the person as a footstool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was supposed to say that. Like, that was one of my favorite parts. I'm just like, damn, she a boss.
Yeah. She's 40, so you know.
Just kidding. Hey, no,
She's also not real, but
over 18. Right?
What if 18?
What if you
That's all
found
that
out
matters.
like she was like 15? You've just been like, wait, what? Very conflicting. But
very conflicting. So, some changes now before we go into the end. The entire original Midgar section can be done in 6 hours or less, really. You can get to the Sector 5 reactor in a half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. You can meet Aerith in less than an hour, essentially, from playing. Lots of areas are just one screen. There are no side quests. You know, all of that stuff was new. There's no kids in Sector 5. Sector 5 slums look like Sector 7 slums. It doesn't look like an actual town. It looks like a bunch of garbage. Don Corneo is still all the same. And I mentioned the characters that weren't in the original that are in Remake. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff was like, okay, we really want to make sure that Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse aren't nobodies. Let's give them a chapter. Let's bring them in. Let's have it more apparent that not only is Shinra letting Avalanche blow up their reactors, they're using it to blame them so that they can get the people to agree on a war with Wutai again, just so they have an excuse to do something to have the people on their side. All that stuff is new.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know you're doing differences, but I just want to add to that saying that, like, I really liked that concept. Like, I feel like that's kind of realistic. Not saying I'm not a conspiracy theory person, but like governments do this shit.
You can
know what
see
I mean?
that happen,
or like capitalize on issues or actions taken by groups of people. I mean, literally, right now maybe you can see some comparisons. And also, I'm on team Barrett, dude. I would be with them.
Yeah,
save the planet, dog.
Exactly.
He's Greenpeace.
Avalanche itself in the original was just Barrett, I guess Tifa, Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. Remake. So one of the side games was a Japanese cell phone game, not a smartphone game, a flip phone cell phone game called Before Crisis. Introduced the fact that there is an avalanche at large, a bigger avalanche, and there's a twist about it. But Remake actually does confirm, make it actually a part of the story, and somehow Barrett's cell is more radical and more like actual terroristy than Avalanche itself, which is something very cool. Because if you think about it, Avalanche is just 4 guys. Like how much is that? Is that really a threat? Okay, so they're a big thing that's always having the pressure put on Shinra. The side game tries to make a reveal about that I think a lot of people choose to ignore because it doesn't really make much sense, and I don't honestly know if Remake's version of the story will use it, but in the side game it's revealed that Avalanche was created by Rufus, Shinra's son, as a way to overthrow his father.
Okay.
But then you get further away, and it's not like Barrett or any of them know that. They are fighting for the planet, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a way to have an excuse to make himself and the Turks have a bit more of a position, because they're kind of like the FBI in a sense that they are domestic conflict stuff, whereas like the military is overseas conflict stuff.
International, yeah.
Everyone loves Reno and Rude. They're the 2 Turks in Song. Song is a lot older than he looks, for sure. But people like them. My one actual complaint with the game itself, the regular full 1997 game, and what I imagine that they'll do with Remake, is who is the one that pushes the button to drop the plate? It's the 2 of them. I don't know which one it was. It's probably Rude. It's not a difference, by the way. That is just, it's them that does it.
Yeah.
They personally have made that decision. Whether or not someone was going to come in and press the button anyway, it's still them that did it. But they're still kind of redeemed in the story anyway, in the main story anyway, and I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that in the Final Fantasy VII Advent Children movie, they're kind of bros with Cloud. Fuck that. You killed millions of people, or thousands of people, you know what I mean? Because it isn't just the slums below that maybe they don't consider them worthy citizens. The people on the plate die, too.
Yeah.
The plate, people lived on that,
And all these people who survived are
Jesse's
homeless.
parents lived on there.
Yeah.
Jesse's family's dead, and Jesse. So I don't like the fact that, it's very anime stuff where it's like, you look at Dragon Ball Z, all of the villains become Goku's friends.
Yeah.
They all do. Fuck that. Have some consequences. So that's my negative is I maybe Remake story takes a turn and Kylo Ren had to die in Rise of the Skywalker, just like how Darth Vader had to die. Because once you kill people, you can't have a hero's return. You can be redeemed, but only kind of through death, through your own sacrifice.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah,
like Darth Vader. Darth Vader was redeemed to the only person that would ever matter to him, his son. But if he walked home with Luke Skywalker to, like the new Republic or whatever you want to call that, they would throw him in jail or execute him.
Yeah.
Because he killed so many people. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with Reno and Rude. I just don't. That's my
I would
nitpick
agree with
on,
that.
on the story. It's very anime.
I get that's the thing, is that's why I forgive some of the stuff, and like if it took itself more seriously, then I'd have more beef with it. But I just let it slide because I'm just like, whatever. It's like it's a little campy at times, so it's like I'm okay with it. Like. Maybe it's okay
like,
to like a bad
guy. And they're
guy,
likable,
you know what I mean?
guys. And Reno or Rude is the bald one, and he always wears those sunglasses. So in the one scene where they're broken, he pulls out another pair. You just like that,
Yeah.
It's fun. Reno is a bit sadistic, but at the same time, they do also question: do we want to do this? I don't know. Or like, let's just miss. We have a machine gun on this helicopter, and we could kill them right now. let's just miss, you know. Let's
Yeah, and like that's why I was like, oh, maybe I like him, and it's like, but then you say like, no, they're the ones who kill people.
you can't really redeem them. There's another Turk that gets added on after the Midgar section, and it's a woman, and she's kind of supposed to be the idiot, where like they're spying and sneaking up, and she says their full plan out loud. You know, this is kind of fun. Like they make them more of a Team Rocket, where like they return throughout the story several times to kind of get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But so let's go into some giant changes, and then we'll talk about the ending. Sorry, you ready?
Yeah.
So everything with the Whispers is not in the original game. And Sephiroth himself is not in the original game as far as Midgar section is concerned.
Okay.
This game is not a remake. This game is a sequel. This is not a remake. This is a remake.
Sequel to...
But it's a sequel. Essentially, Final Fantasy VII happened. Its prequel happened. Its side games happened. The movie happened. And at some point, Sephiroth realizes that he's fated to lose and goes back in time and tries to stop it. And that's what this game is.
Oh my! Because I was very confused, like about that whole thing. I'm like, who is this guy? Cloud mentioned that he killed him, or something.
And so, like, there's
or he's dead.
As much as this game sets up that they're going to change things, a lot of the original story is still hinted on as if you aren't supposed to understand, and it, just like the normal game, will tell you in time. So some of like the stuff that Cloud says about Sephiroth is all the original. In the original game, Sephiroth is never shown in Midgar at all. We are told about him. We get that flashback, just like in the original, where it's baby boy Cloud and baby girl Tifa sitting on the water tower, and Cloud says he's going to go to Midgar and become a soldier, just like Sephiroth, the hero. You know, like he's referred to, and we kind of know he went bad or something, and Cloud says, I killed you, or you died by my hand, or something like that. Something like that, right? That's all we hear about him. And we do know that he does two things in the original, but it's not shown on screen. We know that he kills the president, Shinra. You walk into the president's office, and he's dead with Sephiroth's sword through his back, through the desk. And we know that Sephiroth breaks out Genova and steals her. Or it, rather. That's all you hear about Sephiroth. You don't actually even know what he looks like throughout Midgar at all. So if this game just took that verbatim, Sephiroth would not be in this at all.
Okay.
I mean, they might have put him in because he's very cool, you know, and you have to set up the villain somehow in your first initial thing. So me going in, when I saw him in trailers and whatnot, I'm like, it's cool. They're just expanding on it. Some of this is probably flashbacks or in Cloud's head. Maybe Sephiroth's not real. They need to set up the fucking villain, who's the most iconic Square Enix villain of all time. Like, they need to set.
So I thought at first it was
like
PTSD in a way, like Cloud.
And some of it is set up like Cloud is having that PTSD, but Sephiroth is real. Everything with the Whispers did not happen in the original game. And you do kind of get the sense once you've beaten it, at the very end, that yes, this is fate. This is the planet trying to make sure fate happens. And maybe you don't necessarily realize, what does this mean for the parts I saw them in the game? And that's why I really do think that they put an emphasis on making sure you can chapter select, and there's extra things you can get in hard mode that you can only get and make your characters better in hard mode. It's because they want you to replay it and realize the first time you see the Whispers in the game is when Cloud meets Aerith, when he's evacuating when you blow up the first Mako reactor. Yeah. And you're running through the city, he stumbles upon this flower girl, and she's being tormented by Dementors from Harry fucking Potter, right?
That's what I thought they were. I'm like, oh shit, Harry.
They're there because all of a sudden the 1997 game got a little bit different, and they're freaking the fuck out. Because what happens right before that scene, Cloud is running through the street, and he sees Sephiroth in an alley. And he's confused, and he goes down that alley. He walks away from his intended path, where he would have bumped into Aerith, and he sees Sephiroth. And what does Sephiroth tells him? He's trying to also be confusing and in the very Japanese kind of, you don't really understand what I'm saying. None of it actually matters what I'm saying, but it's all kind of sounds cool. He tells Cloud, I have a favor to ask, which may or may not be a reference to something Cloud says later in the game to his friends after he has his arc. He says, I have a favor to ask. You need to leave. You need to live. Let's leave. And Cloud is all confused. Because all Sephiroth needs, in order to make sure that he can fucking win, is that Cloud never meets Aerith. Never goes on this real journey. If Cloud leaves Midgar, Aerith stays in Midgar. Aerith probably dies in Midgar. And Sephiroth wins. So that's all he wants. It doesn't even matter what he says. And at the very least, he still accomplishes something because he's delayed Cloud long enough to butterfly effect everything.
Gotcha. That makes so much more sense. Like if you didn't tell me this, I just assumed it was
that's the confusing
stuff.
thing.
And like I was totally okay with it though. Like that wasn't like a negative for me or anything. That I was totally being like, okay, evil villain haunting from Cloud's past. Cool.
But that's the weird thing too, is that initially when I beat it, I'm like, okay, so obviously they know people didn't play the original game that are playing this. So you have set up actual mystery with Cloud's past, and he's having these headaches, and there's the scene where he's sitting on the playground with Aerith, and Aerith says, oh yeah, I used to date a guy in Soldier, and Cloud's like, what's his name? I might have known him. And as she says his name, he can't hear her, and he has a headache. That's setting up actual mystery in the real game, but it's also then setting up all this weird stuff that the new players like you don't know is not in the original. So as the time I'm thinking like, they're gonna do something in the sequel or something like that makes it make more sense, or this is gonna pay off in a way where it is a reveal to new players that it wasn't like that. And the more I think about it, I really honestly think that they're like, no, this is one of the most beloved games of all time. You probably have heard the big spoiler. I'm actually surprised you never have. This is the Luke, I have your father for video games. In terms of everyone, I knew the spoiler before playing the original game.
No, I don't know.
We'll get to that later. Because this game could very easily not do what the original did at all. It could go in a completely different path. This is with the ending.
Okay.
Well, the spoiler does not happen in the Midgar section. It happens in the original game later. So the Whispers freak out because Cloud is no longer on his path into bumping into Aerith. So they fucking make her stay put. They swarm her. They cause a commotion. And Cloud sees that and he goes over to her. In the original, he's walking by. He bumps into a flower girl that asks what's going on. Why is everyone running? And you have the option of saying, you need to get out of here. It's dangerous. Or, nah, man, what's going on? Kind of flirting. And if you choose that, she says, do you want to buy a flower? I'm selling flowers. They're 1 gil. And you can choose to buy the flower. Then you can give the flower to either Tifa at the bar or Marlene. If you give it to Marlene, it makes Barrett happy, so that you do that because Tifa doesn't need a flower. Give it to the little girl who's probably never seen a fucking flower in this fucking smog city. So that's already different. How they meet in the context and how they're meeting is completely different. Now Cloud is confused and worried about what's going on with these things. That's a butterfly effect in and of itself. And there's other aspects in changes later where it's uncertain how things got the way they are necessarily, but they did because it's been butterfly affected. The next time you see the Whispers is after all the side quests with Tifa. You go to sleep, and then one shows up in front of Cloud's face and says, sleep for me, or something like that. And Cloud wakes up, like, not midday, but after everyone else did, and he sees that everyone's being attacked by these Whispers. He woke up late. And they're all being attacked. And it's weird because, okay, yes, they were pestering Aerith before, so you know that they're not nice. And now they're literally enemies that you fight, and they're attacking Seventh Heaven, the bar. They're attacking Barrett and Jesse and Wedge. They're attacking them. And they eventually go away, and it's not really clear as to why. They go away when Jesse gets hurt, because now that Jesse's hurt, someone has to take her place. And Wedge also, I think, gets hurt too. So someone needs to take their place. So it's Tifa and Cloud that are going to go on the mission. In the original game, it was always going to be Tifa and Cloud going on that mission. Cloud needs to go on that mission because he needs to fall and drop into the church and meet Aerith again. But because Cloud wasn't going on that mission, the Whispers freaked the fuck out. And they're like, we need to fucking make that happen. So they attack. And they make sure that they injure or probably kill Jesse and Wedge.
So, yeah, this is all like stuff
so that
like,
can happen.
I mean, granted, like, once I found out that it's Fate, I'm like, I just figured it was like, Fate doesn't want them to die or doesn't want them to be involved in this one thing. But I didn't know it was even another level deeper, you know, related to the first game in a way.
Right. I mean, then this is what makes it so freaking cool, in that this game is very subversive. And the fact that they were able to keep this a secret the whole time, that you're not doing a remake. You're not getting your faithful remake of 7 that you want. You're not getting your Luke Skywalker is the cool badass Jedi that you want. You're getting something else, and it's cool. The next time you see the Whispers is in the church. They're kind of swarming around the church. This is when Reno and his guys, they're trying to kidnap Aerith, after Cloud has already met her. And they're kind of swarming. They're not really doing anything, but they're around. Now, they were never in the original game, and I'm sure that they were never written in the original game either. This is something that I think they clearly added for this remake in terms of, hey, we want to change the original, kind of like how the Evangelion movies changed the original, which is why I'm surprised you didn't, I don't know, think about, or, you know, whatever. They were very clearly inspired by the Evangelion movies. They're around. They're not doing anything because they're waiting to see if anything happens. Cloud and Aerith are on the second floor of the church, which is pretty high up. And Reno's on the first floor, and he's walking underneath them and away from them. Aerith leans over to look down, and the banister breaks and she falls. And a Whisper catches her, which is a good thing, and props her back up, which is a helpful thing. I thought they were attacking us. This is confusing. Obviously, you know that they're just trying to make sure that things happen according to plan. If she falls, she would have gotten injured and captured by the Turks, which is not how the game is supposed to go, so they make sure that doesn't happen. If, for some reason, Cloud fucked up and died, or, like, lost, they would have made sure that the Turks never got Aerith. Anyway. So they're doing all that kind of stuff. A couple others, because there's a bunch of little tiny things.
Yeah.
Other big ones, when Hojo meets Cloud, Hojo is about to say something, and the Whispers stop him from saying the thing that would be a reveal to Cloud, because that doesn't happen in the original. The Whispers also save Barrett from dying.
I was going to say
that, and they also kill Wedge.
As much as that, like, see, we were talking about earlier how, like, I didn't really care too much that Jesse died. Like, that hurt me. I'm like, no, do not take Barrett. But then part of me was like, I kind of wanted that, like I wanted the game. I always like my game stories to just get depressing, and like I like when main characters are killed off. I mean, I think that's why I like Game of Thrones so much.
If it has weight,
because it has weight to it and whatnot, or like no one's safe. I like that idea in most stories. I think humans have told so many stories where like everyone lives at the end, everyone's victorious. Like no, there's always sacrifices and wars.
There's loss. There is no victory without loss.
And I was gonna say that like in a way I kind of wanted him to be dead because I wanted to see how is Cloud or any of them going to tell his daughter what happened, and like I wanted to see how that would.
When that happened, I was like, "Holy shit! They're doing it." They're like, "Wow, this is." I didn't realize at that point that this wasn't just a remake, you know. So I'm like, "Holy shit!" Like I had a feeling, since they have an opportunity to, you know, maybe rewrite stuff if they want to change things up or whatever, like. It would be cool if I literally thought, what if they killed Tifa or Barrett in this game? Like, how insane would that be? And then they did that, and then the Whispers bring him back, and he's like, thanks?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm like, oh, good. But then, like, then they kill Wedge. And so here's the thing. I told you earlier that Wedge, Biggs, and Jesse all die on the pillar. And then, but in this game, so, like, you know, I said the Sephiroth that we see is from the future. The game has never straight up said that. It's the only thing that makes sense based off things he has said. Where like when you fight him at the end, he says, just like old times or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you have a certain combination, which is like a combination you can fight him with in the end of the game, in the original. Spoilers, I guess. Oh, I mean, we're going to be talking about the original game. Like he says all that kind of stuff. When Cloud goes to do the final blow, he does his final limit break in the game. just called Omni Slash, which is a bunch of hits, and it's a specific like a barrage of hits. Sephiroth blocks every single one of them because he knows what the move is, because he's done that before to Sephiroth. In fact, that's how he dies. Spoilers. So this Sephiroth is clearly from the future without them saying it. And there's also something else we'll talk about in a second, which you probably have forgotten about, the black-haired Cloud that you see. That weird thing. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Who the hell is that? Is that Cloud?
We'll get to him. We'll get to him. It's not Cloud. It's not Cloud. But Wedge lives. So Sephiroth is from the future. He's an outside force that's changing the story. The Whispers are the planet making sure that fate happens. But somehow, and I'm not sure how much of this is as throughout the whole game as it actually is, but Aerith seems to know more than she's supposed to. And I've seen a lot of theories. I've watched a lot of spoiler discussions that are... I've seen the combinations of people who have never played the original, combinations of most of the people haven't played the original except for 2 people, and then the entire conversations about the end. And everyone has played the original, and it's all they want to talk about is what does this mean? What does that mean? I've seen all these things, and no one's quite certain how much Aerith's supposed to know or how. It could be something as simple as Aerith from the future telling her, or the planet just simply telling her.
Because doesn't she get premonitions, or she knows, they hint? She's hinted as if she's talking to someone. I think.
Yeah,
it's weird.
It's weird. It's weird, and none of that's in the original. And so she saves Wedge. And in the original, when you get to the pillar, as soon as you get to the pillar, Wedge falls and hits the ground and dies. And Aerith stays behind to kind of, I don't want to say clean up, but, tend to him. He is dying, and tend to him. In this game, he doesn't somehow, again, butterfly effect, doesn't die from it, doesn't get fatally injured, but he's all like, I'm a failure and I don't know what to do, and she snaps him into place, tells him, if you want to make something of your life, do something now, get all these people out of here. And that's how he gets out from the plate falling and dying. So why didn't the Whisper stop him? And my thinking is that because he hasn't done anything yet to change the story, he hasn't saved anyone that wasn't supposed to die that was affecting Cloud and Aerith's journey,
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, because I think what they show towards the end in that black-haired Cloud flashback is that there's a limited number of them, of these Whispers. They can't be everywhere, and so they're going to focus on the things that really matter. That's my thinking, but it's only until Wedge is about to rejoin the group in the Shinra building that the Fates are like, or the Whispers are like, okay, holy shit, no, we need to stop this, and then they push him off the building and he dies. So they kill him that way. And I don't think they realized Wedge lives, or Biggs lived. It's that after credits thing where you see Biggs is in a bed, and it's they wouldn't put a dead man in the bed, so obviously he's alive, I don't think that they cared about that because he's unconscious throughout this entire story. He's not gonna change the story in any sort, so they don't really care. And Jesse does die, obviously. So they're doing all that stuff, and it's weird. And then you escape Shinra building, and you're on the motorcycle, and then Motorball, which is that giant robot's chasing, and you fight him. He's the final boss of the Midgar section. In the original game, you fight him, you win, and you leave. And I think because again, it's hard to tell sometimes between what is we are changing the story to be subversive, or if we were to write the story now, what would we change?
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those things where it's like, why wouldn't the Turks and Shinra just chase the fuck out of them? Here they do get a reason of the Whispers are swarming the building. And I think was an obvious excuse as to why they wouldn't just chase after them. And it is a little interesting that only Rufus gets to see them. By the way, his boss fight's awesome. I don't know if you agree with me. He's got a shotgun. He's got this giant dog.
That was tough.
It was tough.
The first couple of times, he kicked my ass right away, but then I just got felt a little lucky, where I just figured him out, and I'm like, I cannot mess this up, because I don't know if I just got...
He does have a secret. He's super weak to poison. Because that was like the one thing he was like weak to or wasn't immune to in the original. And I didn't realize that until
I just had to like
because if you
memorize his like combination of attacks and not get too close, and then
exactly
block and parry and all that.
So yeah, but Rufus sees the whispers, and he's president now, and I guess and he's just confused, and then that's where like their story kind of stops. So you're on the road, and then Sephiroth appears. Aerith's like, "You're wrong. Everything about you is wrong." And Sephiroth opens up a portal, and you all go through, and you fight the Fates, and you kill them. You've destroyed Fate, and then you fight Sephiroth, and then you win in quotes, but you know he gets away or whatever.
Can I just say that the Fates, the giant one there, he had like, because I beat all the smaller ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, the game didn't like the no more was like spawning in or whatever. Like I beat him, and I know like that makes it so you can attack the big one directly. And like it was like a weird like 30 seconds where like nothing was happening, and I'm like, I can't do anything.
You might have timed it right in a spot where they were going to cycle something in.
And but what's funny is so that 30 seconds, I still had my what's it called meter there.
Your limit break?
No, the ATB meter. And Tifa had like 1 bar, and I saw that he had like a sliver of health left. So I'm like, I don't know if the other ones are spawning in. Do I have to just wait? But I had a little 1 bar left, so I made her throw a fire, and she threw a fire, and it like slowly went all the way to where like wherever like
the giant one was.
Yeah, and then it slowly in the distance, I just see it hit, and then it does the cutscene where it dies, and I laughed out loud because I was like,
that something went wrong.
Yeah,
there.
But what's funny is I did that in one shot, but then Sephiroth took me 20 million tries.
And then you fight Sephiroth, and I think really that's just him messing with the group and kind of giving them a sense of confidence. They've killed Fate, and I think so Sephiroth wants to accomplish the fact that he is fated to lose his big plan. Obviously, he wants to make sure that that's not going to happen. But then he also gets the benefit of having Cloud and crew think that they are leading their own destiny now, when Sephiroth is probably going to swoop in and just make sure that they go on a path he wants instead.
So when you're fighting Fate, you're not fighting, like, Sephiroth had no control over that, right? It was
that's the confusing thing, because I've seen people say that no, Sephiroth was in control of the actual Fates themselves in the end there, but he wanted them to kill them, or at least he was able to align it all up. He definitely wanted you to kill Fate,
or maybe like,
but I don't
Fate
necessarily know if they were
them
his minions
killing Sephiroth right now again or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes and no. I can see an argument to either or, and we'll get to that as to why. So yeah, and then the game, ends, and it ends in a similar way that the original ends, where the original ends is they leave Midgar and no one knows really what to do, but Cloud says, no, I have a score to settle with Sephiroth. He's out there, and I'm going, and everyone's like, I'll go too. I'll help you. The same thing really with this, is that they know Sephiroth is still alive and out there, and now there's just more to it, as opposed to like, because again, none of them have seen Sephiroth except for Cloud at that point. Well, Tifa too, but we'll get there. So they don't really have as much personal beef as they do now in Remake, which is good. Also, another change is that Red 13, the lab rat dog, he is playable throughout the entire game as soon as you get him. They didn't make him playable in Remake because you get him so late in the game itself that they didn't want to give him an entire like RPG progression and all that stuff. So he does still fight with you. He reminds
me so much of like Scar from The Lion King. I just couldn't get it out of, like, he had the actual scar on his face and everything, and like when he first talked, I was hoping it would be the same voice actor. But
someone big was Scar, and I forgot who it was back in the day. But yeah, so I mean, he's a normal playable character, but again, when I remember when it first broke before the game came out that Red 13's not playable, all these people pitched fits, and it's like, well, as far as I remember, this is before I replayed the original 7. As far as I remember, you get him, fight, one boss and then Lee, and then then Midgar's over with. So why does it really matter? You know, it's not like he's not going to be playable in the sequel.
Jeremy
and they did
Irons,
confirm.
by the way.
There we go. Yes, he's great. He's also Alfred in
and he's in
current DC stuff. But...
He's in Watchmen.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's
He's
good. He's really good in Watchmen.
Yeah. Then the game ends,
mm-hmm.
and then the credits roll, and it's a new song that the original composer actually wrote. By the way, he wrote that song for this game. That's the theme song of Remake. And then now going all back to it, the game is called Final Fantasy VII Remake, not because it's a remake of Final Fantasy VII, because the theme of the game is remaking it.
I would have never known that. I assumed it was just a level by level remake in that way. Just okay, obviously we changed the combat a little bit, and graphics,
and we're fleshing it out. But no, the theme is remaking. I mean, this is the company that likes to name things like Kingdom Hearts 3D, and the subtitle is 3 words that start with D, because there are 3Ds in 3D. And Birth by Sleep and a math problem, you know, is this just so like I knew that remake is too simple, but it's also like a way to really confirm to people we are remaking the game. This is what you want. Don't worry. When they first announced the game, they called it Final Fantasy VII Remake there, which was how it was like relieving. Okay, this isn't a sequel or anything, which people wouldn't have complained, but like, you know, this is the thing, right? So the game has the option. Oh, and then we see also, we keep getting cuts back and forth where they see visions of things, and one of which is a vision of Midgar completely destroyed, and a Red 13 looking animal and 2 smaller Red 13 looking animals run up to it, and it's confusing. And then Barrett says, "What the hell was that?" And he looks at Red 13 because it was Red 13 or looks like him. And they all see the same vision, and Red 13's like, "That's what happens today if we lose." And so, like, we need to stop fate. What they're actually seeing, all those visions, are things that did happen. That is a scene that happens in the Final Fantasy VII universe. And one of those scenes is the long extended scene where an injured Cloud and a black-haired guy dressed like Cloud with Cloud's sword is carrying him. And that dude fights all of these soldiers and then makes it, and then he carries Cloud over to Midgar. And then that part ends, because they cut back and forth to that. That part ends with our current crew walking away from Midgar, and they kind of collide. And Aerith seems to kind of notice. You notice that she kind of looks up and she says, "Oh, the sky is so big," or something like that. Or she was like afraid of leaving Midgar.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the rest of the game is going to happen. So this game has the ability to, their sequels rather, have the ability to do absolutely completely different stuff. Or it could do the same paths. It could do whatever it wants. But that scene with the black-haired guy is a clear indication that no, things are permanently different now. Because that guy was supposed to die in that fight. And that's how Cloud gets the sword. And that's before the game actually happens.
Okay.
So this is why they did that. And they do a really...
Because I'm like, I had no idea.
No one would
was.
notice
like,
this.
Is this...
I think it's supposed to be like a confusion thing for you, but at the same time, they're also trying to make a point as to how that didn't happen, and something else is happening now. So I really am confused as to why they did it.
Like, assuming I didn't play the first
game.
Yeah. So it's like, and I had like even if I research, like, how would I be able to like research that either without?
Honestly, you would have seen pictures of that guy because he was the main character of the prequel game. But yeah, so like, also when they're walking to Midgar, when his name is Zack Fair, he was Aerith's boyfriend, and that's the name that she says, and Cloud doesn't hear it, and he clenches his head when that happens in that one scene I mentioned earlier. As Zack is carrying Cloud and they're walking to Midgar, we see a bag of potato chips, an empty bag of potato chips, fly towards the camera. It does a super slow-mo on the bag and then flies away. And it's like, whatever. Throughout this whole entire game, one of the new things they added was propaganda for Shinra.
Mm.
They fleshed it out. And the main propaganda is a children's cartoon animal. It's a dog named Stamp. And it's also implied that Barrett probably watches a lot of kids shows with Marlene, because he kind of seems to know a lot about Stamp in like that kind of way. And Stamp is, I think, a beagle.
Yeah, it's the dog with the army hat on.
Yeah,
It's a beagle. Yeah.
On the bag of fucking potato chips, Stamp is a different type of dog. And it's not different types of Stamps, it's a different type of dog. Because now the universe is different. That's how they kind of show that this isn't what happened before Final Fantasy VII, like in the original. Now this is parallel to it. This is now like an alternate universe type of thing, where things can be a little different. Because as far as Fate's concerned, it doesn't matter what species the dog is, as long as the story happens. So it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? And also all the Fates die, and Zack and Cloud see that Midgar is surrounded by like a wall of them, then it turns into bright light, and then as they die. And I think that's supposed to explain that, because they say that in the remake and then also in the original that the planet it ignores time. Time is not a constant to the planet. It's kind of like this event happens, period. Every when sees the event. Every when sees Midgar covered by the Whispers, including this before the original game prequel kind of era, Zack and Cloud.
It's some time.
They see it. It's time mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
But it's also to explain that like the Whispers would have stopped Zack from winning. But since they were so fucking preoccupied from dying, from fighting Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, and Aerith, that they didn't stop Zack from living, so that he lives. You know, like, it's supposed to illustrate that it doesn't matter when things are happening, they're just happening, period. As far as the planet is concerned, because the Whispers are a part of the planet. So, again, like, the sequels have the ability to go in different directions, so I would like to, I don't want to recap the original game, because there's a lot of parts that probably will still happen. It would be weird, it honestly would be weird if they never do anything like the original game at all. I think they will still hit the points. I think that this is an opportunity for them to change things or pacing things or events in different orders. They might, if they're cowards, they'll change the spoiler, which I hope they don't do, and I don't think that they will. But it at least gives you the ability to think that a thing might not happen, or maybe other things do happen and it changes things.
Yeah.
You know, it does keep you on suspense, as opposed to always knowing. So I'm going to quickly walk through the original game, just the main beats as to how and why some of these things are important. So after we leave Midgar, no one knows where to go. They just know that they find Sephiroth, but Cloud has been keeping a lot of things secret, and there's just a lot to talk about. So Barrett says we should head to Kalm, Kalm. It's a town nearby Midgar. Let's just recoup there and figure out what the fuck we're doing. So they go there, and that's basically where Cloud tells the story about him and Sephiroth. This is the first time you see Sephiroth is in this flashback. So essentially, Sephiroth was a war hero when Midgar was fighting Wu-Tai, which I know you don't know what Wu-Tai is because they don't mention it. Wu-Tang, yes. Wu-Tang is for the children. He was a war hero there. He's soldier first class, and Cloud really wanted to be like him, so he left his town of Nibelheim, and Tifa and his mom. And by the way, that flashback of Cloud and his mom, whose name is like Claudia, and she has his hair, which is interesting. That happens actually in this flashback, but they put it in the remake earlier, which I think is good because that's a good scene. And it's the exact same lines too in the original of like, no, I think an older girl would be nicer for you, one that's more mature, one that can take care of you. And Cloud is kind of like laying on his bed or whatever, but Cloud joins Soldier, and he gets into first class, which is, highest of honors. They're super soldiers, essentially.
Yeah.
But the war is over. So Cloud doesn't really get to go on any cool missions. He is just, you hear this, you don't actually see any of this part, but you hear that, oh yeah, you see when I'm boring missions, but now he gets to go on a cool secret mission with Sephiroth, the war hero. And Sephiroth and Cloud are in the back of a Jeep, with some other regular Shinra grunts. They look the same as that they do in the remake, where they got that weird, like, 3 red-eyed kind of helmet thing that kind of covers their face for the most part. There's a few of them with them. One of them doesn't want to take his helmet off for some reason, and he's nervous about going to Nibelheim. That's weird. then they get there, and Sephiroth says to... they're going to Nibelheim, by the way, which is where Cloud is from.
Yeah.
Because a Mako reactor that's in the mountain near Nibelheim, called Mount Nibel, which is deactivated because all the reactors that they do use is just in Midgar now. They built Midgar after building all those other reactors. It's apparently overrun with monsters, and people are seeing them, and they're not getting to the town, but they're like, we need to stop these monsters. So Cloud and Sephiroth show up at Nibelheim, and Sephiroth says to Cloud, "What's it feel like to be back home? To be coming home? To be having your hometown coming kind of thing?" Cloud's like, "Oh, I don't know, I guess. But what about you though?" Or Sephiroth's like, "I don't know. I don't really have a hometown. I don't have a home." And it's like, "Well, do you have any parents?" And Sephiroth's like, "Well, my mother was named Jenova, and my father," and he kind of laughs at the idea of his father. He says, "Forget about it. Let's go on." So they go into the town, and Sephiroth's like, "We're going to leave in the morning, so if you want to, talk to any of your old friends, go ahead." And Sephiroth is a good guy. I'm just pointing this out. He's not a bad guy.
Say, when is he?
He's a good guy. He's a cool guy. In the prequel game, like, he's not a bro, but like, he's got your back, and he's a badass. Like, he is your old. You want him to be your friend. It's like, if you want to talk to your parents, go do that. You're like, hey, just come back here, rest up, and then in the morning we're going. So then that's when you get to walk around, and it's a bit confusing because Cloud is talking to people that he doesn't quite remember talking to. But again, this was 5 years ago, and Cloud's telling the story, so maybe things don't line up. And he sees his mom. That's where we get that one flashback, and he goes into Tifa's house, doesn't see anyone there, but he knows that Tifa's been trained by this martial arts person, and he doesn't see Tifa, but there is a weird... So, like, this flashback, you're playing it, but the framing is that Cloud is apparently telling the rest of the party everything that you're doing as it's happening, kind of like it. Mm-hmm. So if you go into Tifa's house and you go into her bedroom, and Tifa's like, "What were you doing in my bedroom?" And if you go over to her wardrobe, you can pull out underwear and smell it. And if she says, "Did you really do that?" and it's like, it's supposed to be a joke, "No, I didn't do that." But you can play her piano or whatever, and it's it's whatever. And the next morning, they come out and they say, "Okay, you have a mountain guide. We've hired a mountain guide, and it's a young girl, and it's Tifa. And she's in a very sexy cowboy outfit," which you briefly see in Remake. You see the weird, like, kind of flashback or vision Clouds has of Tifa in a cowboy outfit in front of, like, a dead body. Do you remember that?
No,
it's very brief.
I don't remember.
We'll get to that because it's not in the original, in the Midgar section. It's a part of this flashback. But she's the mountain guide and doesn't really talk to Cloud, but it's okay because, it's business. It's cool. And so they go up the mountain and they get into the giant reactor, the Mako reactor. Tifa has to stay outside, and one of the soldier grunts makes her stay outside, and so she waits out there because only soldiers are allowed to enter this abandoned building that you clearly know how to get to, and no one's guarding it, so why can't you go in anyway? But whatever. So Cloud and Sephiroth going alone. They go all the way to the back, and you're killing dragons and shit because they want to illustrate. So when the original, this is one of the cool storytelling things they do with actual gameplay. The original game starts, Cloud is level 7. In this flashback, he's level 1. It's kind of cool. Sephiroth is level 50, and he knows all of the high-level magic, and he's one-shotting dragons that Cloud he does like 3 damage to, and Sephiroth does like 4,000 damage to. He's actually a part of your party, which is cool. I hope the sequel actually does that in the flashback, because that'd be awesome. You're like literally killing just straight-up dragons and shit. And you get to the back, and you see all these test tube, giant, like, experiment tubes. And Sephiroth goes up into one, and Cloud walks up all these stairs. It's like rows of them, kind of like an auditorium. But there's a central pillar of stairs that he walks up to this giant one in the center. Cloud walks up there, and he's all confused, and Sephiroth calls him down. He looks at one as people that are turning into monsters in these tubes. And Sephiroth's like, this is confusing, and he explains that regular soldiers, like Cloud, are infused with Mako energy. That's why their eyes are bright blue.
They talk about that briefly.
That's why they could do super cool stuff. But Sephiroth was a little bit different. He's not quite sure how or why. Like, it's something his mom did or something. He's not quite sure. And he has a little bit of a freak out when he sees this, and he realizes that he was made in a lab like one of these monsters. and he walks up the stairs, the giant tube, and he sees this weird alien woman thing, and above it says Genova. And Sephiroth's like, that's weird, that's what my mom's name is. He has a freak out, and he leaves. And you, as Cloud, go back to the town. So in Nibelheim, there's a giant Shinra mansion that's abandoned, because I guess someone from Shinra used to live in Nibelheim. And you go in there as Cloud a couple days later, because Sephiroth went in the mansion apparently and hasn't been out in days. You go in there to find him. Secret basement, laboratory, library. You're in there, and apparently Sephiroth has been reading all these books. And Sephiroth's like, he now knows who he is. So he reads that, and I don't remember what the remake says about any of this stuff, but they're ancients, a race of people long ago that were more connected to the planet. They all died out. Sephiroth's mom, Genova, was apparently, when they found Genova's corpse or whatever in the ice cap, the North Pole frozen over, the last ancient like physical like this body, and with that they made Sephiroth with her cells or whatever. So Sephiroth's like, I'm the last living ancient.
Okay.
You fuckers destroyed the planet. Ancients were supposed to be nomads. We moved from apparently one planet to the next. We trying to find the promised land. Something that the game gets too put on the nose that the characters don't realize that they're fucking talking about the afterlife and not literally a patch of land that's awesome. You know what I mean? But we were supposed to search for the promised land, but your descendants decided to stay put. Your people decided to stay put. And that's how the planet went to shit. I am the last living ancient now. This planet belongs to me, and I'm going to kill all of you. And he flies away. Literally flies away.
That's kind of a crazy jump in a way.
Yes. But he does have superpowers, and he has been infused with cells of a super person. And so Cloud goes outside and finds that the entire town of Nibelheim is on fire and burning to the ground. His mom's dead. Bunch of people are dead. And you get a very famous cutscene of Sephiroth staring. It's like, this is one of the CG cutscenes that the original game did. Staring at you, the camera, aka the player, aka Cloud, with a wall of fire behind him, turning around and walking through the flames and disappearing. It's that happens, right? Mm-hmm. And so then Cloud doesn't really remember what happens. Tifa's alive. She was unconscious. I forgot to mention that briefly in this, Sephiroth goes back up to the Mako reactor, takes the body of Genova. And apparently Tifa's dad was there and tried to stop him, and he stabs her through the heart. That's right. No, this happens after the fire. Cloud chases him up to there. Tifa chases him too. Sephiroth too. Yeah, apparently you walk in, Tifa's dad is dead, and Sephiroth's sword is there, and he's picking up the giant test tube of Genova, and he's like, Mother, we're gonna take back this planet, Mother. We're gonna do it. You and me, let's do it together. Tifa picks up Sephiroth's sword and charges him. Sephiroth knocks her aside, and Cloud impales Sephiroth, and Sephiroth falls and dies.
And that's the end of the game.
That's the end of this flashback.
Flashback of. Is that a prequel? So that's in the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, though.
This is right after the Midgar segment. Cloud tells you all
of this.
And
you're playing the... Okay,
yes.
Gotcha.
All of this is a flashback is a story that Cloud is telling all the crew while they're in this town nearby, Midgar. This all happened before the game, and it's implied that 5 years happened basically between then and now. Tifa has basically been unconscious, and Cloud apparently leaves, and it's implied that the beginning of the game happens because he goes to Midgar for mercenary work, bumps into Tifa, who's there, and offers him a job. And that's how the first beginning of the game starts. So that's that. But then after he tells him all that story, and Cloud's like, but Sephiroth is alive, so there's something going on in Genova and all this stuff, so like, I need to stop this. And they all agree to help him, and they go on a bunch of journeying. We don't need to go into any of this stuff. There's a seaside town that's a military town called Junon, that has a giant cannon. That when you get there, they're throwing a giant party or giant parade for Rufus, because it's implied that like Shinra they don't own the world, but they have places everywhere in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
that like they're it's not just Midgar. They have a lot of money and power and influence, and Rufus is now the president. Whatever. Keep going. There's more stuff. We get backstories for Red 13 and Barrett. Barrett's backstory is very anime as fuck. How he got his arm, and like how he had a best friend and they disagreed, and his best friend died, and Marlene is actually that guy's child. Barrett adopts her. He's not actually her dad. It's all that kind of stuff. There's the Golden Saucer, which is this giant casino thing, and then they learn. They go to. It's a bit confusing as to how they kind of get to like this understanding, but there is a temple of the ancients on one of the continents, and they go there, and they bump into Sephiroth a few times, but and he doesn't know who any of these people are. He doesn't know who Cloud is really at all. Cloud says, "It's me, and I'm I killed you, and you gotta stop this shit," or whatever. And Sephiroth, when you first see Sephiroth, he's like, who are you? But every single time you go to fight him, he's actually Jenova, and it's a different form of Jenova life, Jenova death, Jenova is like, it's little subtitles. You don't fight Jenova in Midgar at all, by the way. They added that in there. And whenever you defeat this Sephiroth, which is actually Jenova, instead at the end it's like the body of a person with a tattoo on their arm. And this was in Remake. There's a few people in robes with tattoos on their arms.
Yeah, I didn't know who those guys were.
Yeah, and like you see like at the end, like Sephiroth has one, and then he is one, and then like he's carrying Jenova. My thinking is that Sephiroth at that point is the actual game's real Sephiroth, and he's not the future one, but I'm not really certain. But anyway, like, oh, you killed Jenova, but it's actually this numbered arm dude. That's weird. It happens a couple times. You get to this Temple of the Ancients, and you go through there, and it's like basically an Aztec pyramid, which is cool. And you see that on like murals on the wall that, there's materia, and materia is crystallized Mako. Life, it's the life stream of the planet.
Yeah.
When you die, your energy goes back into the planet, right? And Mako is just what they call the energy that they make from it, but it also is a life stream, whatever. Materia is life stream crystallized, and with that is all the power, all the knowledge, the memories of whatever existed within that part of the life stream. The summons are apparently you summoning the spirits of those warriors or whatever. Like Ifrit, Shiva, those were people that are dead in the live stream, and you're summoning them back out to fight, which is kind of cool.
Okay, because they never really explained it too much. It's just like, oh yeah, big tiger thing, and then Ice Woman.
Yeah. The summons are cool, and they made them feel really cool in Remake. And so there's, it's this mural talking about materia and how the ancients were able to use materia and all this and that. But there are two special materias. There is a white materia and a black materia, and there's only one of each. This is one of the cool things where there's a lot of reoccurring things in Final Fantasy games. Like there are chocobos in pretty much all of them, the names of the spells are pretty much all the same. And in the older Final Fantasies, there's a spell called Holy and a spell called Meteor. And they make that these materias. There is a black materia called Meteor and a white materia called Holy. Sometimes it's referred to as Ultima, but it's Holy. And basically, the mural is a prediction that Meteor will come to destroy the planet, and Holy will stop it. And then you kind of learn, because Sephiroth's there, that Sephiroth is after the Black Materia because he wants to destroy the planet and by summoning Meteor. Because when Jenova... So it's also kind of revealed, Jenova is not an ancient. They thought she was an ancient. She's actually an alien that crash-landed on the planet and decided to destroy it and kill everyone. And she looks like a human because she morphed herself into what the ancients look like to trick them. And then she died like that. Yeah, yes, exactly.
Or the thing.
Well, yes, that's what I knew what you meant, is the thing.
Similar.
To trick them. And that's why she looks like a woman. She has eyeballs on her boobs, though, which is a little weird.
Don't we all?
And that's why she looks like a person. She wants to destroy everything. But when she crash landed, she caused a giant crater in the planet on the North Pole, which if you go into the Shiva fight in Remake and you use the assess materia on Shiva, it says that she was an ice queen that happened when a great calamity crashed into the planet, and she healed the wound by freezing it over. So Remake implies that Shiva was alive then, which is kind of cool, and froze it over. So like but the original game just says that the planet reacted by freezing it over and freezing Genova. But when you cause a giant wound to a living organism that isn't fatal, the living organism will try to heal and will go crazily rush resources, white blood cells to a cut on the body to destroy infected, bacteria, all that kind of stuff.
Clog up the wound.
So, so the planet, when that happened, rushed a bunch of life stream to the spot to heal itself. And Sephiroth's like, if I cause a giant meteor to crash into the planet, so much life stream will pool in one spot that I can combine with it and become a god. And that's his plan. Is to literally, to elevate his existence by killing everyone and absorbing them all of their spirits, everything. That's his plan. And he gets the black materia because it's not important how Cloud and them get the black materia, but Sephiroth is standing in front of Cloud after all this pyramid stuff, and he tells Cloud, "Give it to me." And Cloud walks over and hands it to him, and Cloud doesn't know why, and he does that. And Sephiroth's like, "Thanks," and bounces.
Thanks, bro.
It's after this that Aerith, she's been keeping things to herself, but she's like, basically, she leaves the group. She says, "I'm sorry. I don't want any of you getting hurt. I'm going to stop Sephiroth," and she leaves. And she goes. You don't know where she goes, and then you play. You're trying to find her, or whatever. And there's an ancient city of the ancients on another continent. You go there, whatever. You're going through this, and it looks a lot like underwater coral type stuff. It's kind of a cool place. And you get to the center of this underground cathedral type building, or whatever. And there's beautiful water flowing on the floor, and you see Aerith. She's on an altar praying, and she's holding. Well, you don't really notice this as the characters don't notice this, but she's holding this white materia that she's had with her the whole time. They say it's so brief in the remake that I'm actually surprised they didn't want to elaborate it, or I'm surprised they didn't bring it up more. She says that her mother gave her a materia that's completely useless, and she keeps it in her hair tie thing, her thing that ties up her hair. So she's holding that thing, and Cloud and Tifa and Barrett. By the way, you've recruited 4 other characters. We don't need to get into any of them.
Okay.
You've recruited 4 other characters at this point. You've also gone on the date already. And this is the big spoiler thing. Sephiroth comes out of nowhere and plunges his sword into Aerith, and she dies. She doesn't get to say goodbye. She probably doesn't even know that Cloud and them were there, and she dies. Aerith dies. That's the big spoiler.
Okay.
That is the no, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah, I didn't know. I almost was told it, but I didn't know.
See, you were told that someone dies, and I'm so glad that was the phrasing, because I was hoping you would think it was just Barrett.
Yeah, I heard it's not Tifa, but someone else. That's all basically I was told, and I thought, I'm like, oh, it's Jesse, or something. Or I'm like, or if it is Aerith, it'll happen, and it's not going to be.
And this is why this is a big deal. She does not come back at all. She's dead. And Cloud has a good, even though the English localization and translation was done by one person and is bad. I mean, they literally misspell Aerith's name. Her name is Aerith in the original, in the English version. In Japanese, she's Aerith. But even then, Cloud has a great line where it's he says, Sephiroth is still there, kind of taunting them. And Aerith's like, Aerith will never laugh again. She'll never cry again. She'll never speak again. She's gone. Why? And he kind of freaks out. This whole story about this game was based off of the theme of this is, losing someone and them just being gone forever, because the creator of Final Fantasy's mother had died. And that's what this story is that's his realization, is no, there will never be another moment where she says anything, because she's gone. So that's the big spoiler. And that's why them saying, oh, we don't necessarily have to do what the original game does is almost maybe an excuse for them to not kill Aerith. I would be super disappointed if that's just their reasoning for this. That was my thinking, was like, what if
Barrett goes Barrett skipped death once? Maybe he's meant to die, but not then. You know what I mean?
My thinking was that Cloud and Tifa get together by the end of the game. You know, the relationship in the story really wants to push Cloud and Aerith. That's why when she dies, it's a big deal to him. And at the end, it's Tifa, because Tifa is the one that kind of saves his soul, so to speak, and makes him realize he's a better person than what he needs to be. And that's there together. A way to twist a knife is that Sephiroth kills Tifa, but Aerith has the ability to save her at the cost of her own life, or something. Like, they might do a thing where it's like a double, stab kind of thing, where like, no Tifa, no, it is Aerith, no, kind of thing. Maybe they'll
Cloud
do that,
will
but
sacrifice himself instead, or he gets somehow he knows that Aerith is going to die.
Yeah.
And he's...
Well, my thinking is that Cloud will he'll kind of know, and maybe Aerith, I think Aerith knows that she's going to die. I think that's why in your version of the game, she tells Cloud not to fall in love with her, because it's going to make it worse when she does die. I think she knows. So they could be a thing where they're trying to stop it, but it happens anyway, and that makes it so much worse.
That's the lesson, if you can't escape death, no matter
But
how hard
she
you
was
try.
holding the white materia, and they don't really see that, and it tumbles into the water and goes away. But they don't know that. And they don't even know that it was the white materia, or that it was really all that important or whatever. And so they don't know what to do. They climb up this mountain. Snowboarding time, like I told you earlier. Because it's just a stupid minigame, and Cloud's all moody at this point. Up there, they learned that Aerith's real mother, which you did see, Elmira, that's the name of the woman that raises Aerith. But her mother's real name starts with an A and it's long. She was the last living ancient for real. I don't really know how. She had Aerith with a man that was a scientist that was studying her, not in a weird way, but like an actual, like, I want to research your people, like, how about the planet, how can we save, our world from potentially dying or whatever. And Hojo comes in and kills that scientist dude, and whatever. But you see all that stuff in like old videotapes or whatever. And there was a man I skipped, this weird sage guy who's related to Red 13. But you go back there, and you learn basically that like the planet always tries to correct things when things go wrong. That's weird. Okay, but then you learn that Sephiroth is at the crater in his for real Sephiroth. Every time you've seen him, it's actually Genoa, which is actually one of these dudes with numbers on their arms that then die or something. Sephiroth for real is dead, but his body is in the crater, absorbing all of this Mako energy stuff, and is in crystal or something. And you go up there, and they still have they get the black materia back somehow or something like that. But then they go up there, and then Cloud hands it back over to Sephiroth in a way where he gets tricked or something like that. And Sephiroth summons Meteor, and now Meteor is falling. And it's a slow meteor, because you do play like a bunch of game left with the meteor always in the sky, which is creepy. All of Shinra people are up there because the threat is now, hey, the world, we can't rule the world, that the world's gone. So they're freaking out. Mm-hmm. That's where Hojo reveals that, because Cloud has all these weird, he doesn't know who he is, but he kind of does, but it's not making any sense or stuff like that. And Cloud says, oh, you were a failed experiment. All of the people that have the numbers on them, were attempts to infuse people with Sephiroth's cells, his dead body cells, and clone Sephiroth, and you were a failed clone. You're a failure. You're nothing. You're nobody. And that's when Cloud spirals into depression.
There's a moment where he's like, nothing.
Yeah. There's a moment where he's like on the ceiling somehow, just moping. Like, it's all, he goes into crazy, and Meteor is coming, and the planet responds to Meteor by basically summoning all of the things from Evangelion. These giant monsters come out.
Okay.
They're all called weapons.
Angels.
That yeah, they're called weapon, but they're all very organic looking. They're all named after like precious stones. There's diamond weapon, ruby weapon, emerald, sapphire. Although one of them's named Ultima weapon, but it's not the strongest. And they're like, it's more of like they don't really know what the real threat is, so they see all the people and the fact that Shinra is destroying everything, so they're going to attack people instead. It's bad, right? That cannon in Junon, that Midgar, that Shinra building, Shinra City or whatever, destroys one of them. A couple of them wander around. They're super bosses that aren't necessary to beat the game, but you can fight them, and they are a good 30 times stronger than the final boss. Like, some of them are legitimately, you need to be complete leveled, you need to know all the tricks, and then have a strategy, which is cool. So they're all that. You do kill a couple in the actual story itself, but Cloud goes into a crazy depression, and he loses his mind, and he spends a good chunk of the game in a wheelchair, and Tifa is now your main character.
Okay.
And Cloud is out of commission. Because here is the twist. Because there was that big spoiler, but there's an actual twist. Nothing Cloud knows about himself was real. Cloud was not a soldier. Zack was a soldier. Cloud never went on that mission with Sephiroth. That was Zack. And it's all confusing as to what and how. And there's a point where, like, Tifa and Cloud fall into the life stream, and she gets to go through his past, and basically she saves him. She fixes his mind and saves him. Basically, you replay that flashback, but Cloud was never able to get into actual soldier. He was just a Shinra grunt. He was one of the grunts that was with Sephiroth and Zack. He was friends with Zack because in the prequel game you play as Zack the whole time. Don't need to get into his story at all, except that he was with Aerith at one point, and he becomes friends with Cloud, and he's always encouraging Cloud, like, oh yeah, you can get into soldier. I'm going to teach you how, man. We're going to do it. We both live in backwater, nobody towns. We're, two peas in a pod. You're my friend, Cloud. So that's why Cloud was on the mission, so to speak, as just a soldier with Zack and Sephiroth. And when Sephiroth in the flashback says, what's it feel like to go back to your hometown? He's actually talking to that random grunt, which is actually Cloud. Cloud is the one that prevents Tifa from going in the building, but he doesn't show his face. It's all that kind of stuff.
So then, and that flashback of Tifa and Cloud as a kids, did that really happen?
That was still real. And I forgot to mention, one of the things that doesn't make any sense in the game is that before you get this reveal, you go to Zack's house, but you don't know who he is. You go to a house in this town, and these people are like, oh, we have a son and soldier. His name is Zack. We haven't heard from him for forever. We're worried about him. Do you know him? And the Cloud says, I don't know who that is. And you see on a table a picture of Sephiroth, Zack, and Tifa, which is a photo that was taken in the flashback, and which makes Cloud, he's like, this is clearly fake. By the way, you go back to Mount Nibel, or to Nibelheim, and it's as if it didn't burn down at all. But that's not like a weird thing. It's just that like Hojo recreated the town or whatever completely from scratch, and people live there pretending to be other people. That's not important at all.
Yeah.
But in this now, Tifa's recreating she's fixing Cloud's mind and trying to help him. And she's learning that no, it was Zack you were playing as in that flashback. Cloud was a grunt. That's why Tifa didn't really talk to you as Cloud, because she doesn't know who Zack is. You know what I mean? And it's Zack then and Sephiroth that go up, and Sephiroth realizes that he's not who he thinks he is, and it's Zack inside Shinra Manor when Sephiroth attacks, but it is Cloud that goes up with Zack as a soldier, as a regular grunt, after the town is burned down, and you see Tifa's dead dad, and Tifa's there, and it is Cloud for real that picks up Sephiroth's own sword and stabs Sephiroth, and he dies. So that's the one thing that's confusing, is that Cloud remembers killing Sephiroth, but Cloud, his who he thinks he was, which is Zack, wasn't there. So it's all confusing to him, and that's why he gets these things, because he can't be in two places at once. He remembers killing Sephiroth, but he remembers not being there, because Zack gets knocked out. So after all that happens, Hojo and the scientists collect Sephiroth, who's dead. They also collect Cloud and Zack, who are knocked unconscious, and they do experiments on them. They're both in these test tubes, and they're doing some weird experiments where Hojo's curious into Cloud, and he's like, how is this person able to do these things? I'm going to try a new experiment. I'm going to take some of the Mako energy cells for inside Zack and put him into this other guy, this Cloud guy. Just see what happens. So Cloud is all fucked up. Zach kind of wakes up and breaks them out, killing a bunch of people, and Zach is a soldier. Zach didn't realize that soldiers were the bad guys essentially, and so he denounces his who he is, and he breaks them out or whatever, and they get to the point where they're at Midgar, they're almost away, they're almost there, they're almost to safety or whatever, and all these Shinra soldiers show up to kill them because they got out and they'd rather they be dead. And Zack fights them all and dies. And he leaves his sword as he's dying. Yeah, it's one of those things where everyone dies, but Zack got fatally wounded, so he gets to have his last words with Cloud, even though there's no other threat around, Mm. But Cloud is like really fucked up, and he's not able to think straight or whatever. And Zack gives Cloud his sword. Cloud is now wearing also soldier uniform because Zack found it. It's the prequel game makes a stupid excuse as to why there was Zack's outfit in that house they were in, whatever. And he says, like, you are my living legacy. I need you to live on for me. Do this for me. Be the person you want to be, but please do it for me, And he dies. And Cloud kind of, because he has Zack's cells in them, and it was such a traumatic experience, has all of Zack's memories, but thinks they're his own. So Cloud was never lying when he said he was in soldier first class, but never was. Because he thinks he was, but it's all super confusing to him. So he thinks he's this badass, but he's not an actual badass. He never did anything cool. That's why he's a little bit dorky. That's why he's super socially awkward. He's a 21-year-old guy that had 5 years on ice. He's kind of a teenager in a sense. He's not really cool, but he's trying to be cool, And Tifa reconstructs his mind and helps him out, and this is where Cloud actually has growth, where he's upset because he blames himself for Aerith dying, but he comes to acceptance that no matter what he did, it was Aerith's choice to leave. It was Aerith's choice to sacrifice herself to save them. Like, it's not really all his fault. You know what I mean?
Acceptance. So that's the final stage of death.
He forgives himself. And also him and Tifa kind of fall in love, but it's sweet or whatever. And then you learn that you don't need the white materia to cast Holy. It's one of those things where everyone kind of needs to come together and lend their strength to the planet, and the planet can do it. And you do it at the end, and you stop Meteor. But this is also the cool thing, where you talk about earlier in this episode. So like stories don't need to have happy endings.
Yeah.
It's a very vague ending this game has. Meteor is crashing. You've killed Sephiroth. The boss fight's awesome, but Meteor crashes anyway. But right at the last second, you see Aerith's ghost, and she's the one kind of carrying Holy forward, and Holy destroys Meteor. And also everything. And then it says 500 years later, and you get a scene where Red 13, who's really old, running with his two kids, and they see a destroyed Midgar, then it says the end. That's the game.
So everyone just dies.
But you don't know. It could be something where, as far as the original game is concerned, this could be something where everyone could have died, but for some reason Red 13 didn't, and the world was destroyed. It could be something where everyone lived. It could be something where everyone did die, but their return to the life stream, which is all happy anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that you were erased from existence. You're just a part of the planet again. It's very vague. You don't really know. And that's it.
Huh.
And then years later, they do a movie where it's like, no, actually, everyone did live. Midgar is destroyed because they didn't want to live there, so they built a city right next to Midgar, and everyone lives there instead.
That's
Sorry.
weird.
We want to have our cake and eat it too. The movie's dumb. We'll get to that when we do our episode on it. All of this could change with the sequel, with the remake sequel. They could also do several things. So when they show Zack living and carrying Cloud to Midgar, it's implied that no, Zack is going to be doing things with that sword, being that person. Zack is a stronger person than Cloud physically. He is a super soldier. You know what I mean? Cloud is kind of based off him. Cloud was not an experiment. Cloud is not a made-up person. Hojo was kind of messing with him to kind of fuck with him or whatever. Cloud was a real person that lived, is still alive. Maybe he dies at the end of the game, but the movie says, nope, they all lived. Also, it implies that Cloud was a bit of he was a loner. Tifa had a lot of friends, and they all kind of not bullied Cloud, but they never let him hang out with them. But Cloud had a crush on Tifa.
Classic.
And this is them as little kids, yeah. And it's like the only person, like when Tifa's mom died, and you see the scene where she's crying, and the friends are like, "Come on, we just want to play." And Cloud's like, "Are you okay?"
Yo,
like, okay, so, yeah. So it's so like that's their weird backstory. But Zack being alive means that the sequel to this game has to address that in some way, and they could do several things. Like Zack is still in the past, potentially in an alternate universe, and Cloud and their story seems to be going on the same path that the original game did. They escape Midgar and they're looking for Sephiroth. Just because they killed Fate doesn't necessarily mean that they have a different destination in mind. You know what I mean? They could still go on the same path, but the game could also do something where it jumps back and forth between Cloud and crew and Zack in like this alternate universe. That's where they could do things where like the remake really wanted to stress that Jessie was wanted to be an actress at the Gold Saucer. In this alternate universe, she could be there, and you could see her there as Zack, and that's a way they can illustrate the world's changing.
Yeah, I mean,
you remember Leslie, the dude who's like his girlfriend left him or whatever, and he's going to want revenge on Don Cornero.
Yeah, alternate
universe, she's with him. You know, like little ways where they can show that the world is different would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we really don't know. I mean, is there confirmed second game?
Yes. They didn't confirm how many parts because they don't know. Also, I think the fact that this game is the best-selling Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, I was reading
ever
that
now.
It sold pretty well.
Could mean that they might elongate it even further. In one interview before the game came out, they asked Tetsuya Nomura if he's going to remake any of the other parts of the compilation, the prequel game, the movie, whatever, and he said no, that wouldn't really make any sense anymore. It's like, well, yeah, because the universe is different now.
It's almost as like a soft reboot in a way, like where...
But at the same time, it is a sequel.
Yeah, but I'm saying like they could, like if they wanted to, like you said, completely scrap whatever you remember as the second half of the original game, you know what I mean, just do something completely different. It could still be palatable for people like me who might never play the original game
because there are parts of the game that's boring, the pacing is off. You go to a lot of places and nothing really happens, but they want to have lots of things. Like there's a very thin line of motivation of why they're going to where they're going. It's kind of really just, it's a video game and you can't go anywhere else but this direction, so you're going that direction to play the video game, you know? And then story happens, so they could do several huge things.
I think that'd be cool for everybody, I think, if they just kind of like scrapped it, or maybe it loosely follows that, but it's just different things, like you said, happen, or you have different characters meet that wouldn't have met otherwise.
It's tough because so many moments are super memorable. The Gold Saucer is super memorable. There's tons of minigames in there. Costa del Sol is this beach resort where you can buy a house for 300,000 gil and it does nothing. You just Cloud owns a house there. All these things are super memorable that they would be remiss if they didn't do them. But they could do a thing where Cloud's story kind of basically follows the pathing of the original. Maybe it's written better, maybe it's paced better. But then you hop back and forth over to Zack, who's a completely different run. Maybe he has no one from the original party as a crew with him. Maybe it's literally him and Aerith. Because the idea in the prequel, where obviously Zack dies, Zack says he's going to go and he's going to go be with Aerith. And he's going to become a mercenary, and Cloud is going to help him because he's not going to leave his buddy hanging out to dry. Like him and, he's like, oh man, but her mother lives with her too, so I can't really live there. That'd be weird. It's trying to show that he's a legitimately likable person. It could be a game where it's just him and Aerith journeying, and it leads to the same part. They could do a thing where Aerith dies in both timelines or something, at the same point, and it's affected. You could get a final awesome epic battle scene where it's just Cloud and Zack fighting Sephiroth or something, like it's. Yeah, it could be cool. I've talked a lot about the game. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that story, and what do you think?
I mean, there's a lot going on, and I'm sure there's even more to it. It seems more anime. I feel like, like I said, this remake, had anime BS, but didn't feel 100% in that direction. From what you're saying, that sounds a lot more anime,
Yes.
where in a lot more crazier, and like I don't know how much they're gonna do that, because from what it seems, is they try to be more of a grounded, but yet has its moments where it's a little silly or goofy or campy, whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, I
Mhm.
hope they continue with that, because like it might feel too big of a jump. I don't know, but like you also played the game, I didn't, the original game. I don't know how if that feels that way, where it goes from something like, oh, it's a city, there's these like it's about the eco terrorists and what they're trying to do, and all of a sudden now there's
Yeah,
bigger
it
things
definitely
at play.
becomes a world. It becomes a world trotting adventure. That's just why like the Midgar section back in the day was so mind blowing to people, is because everyone thought when you went that didn't know anything about the game going in that the game entirely took place inside of Midgar, and it felt big enough back then that like yeah no like this could be a whole game if it's just more Midgar. This city is big enough to have an entire story, and then you go outside and you're on the world map and like oh no, Midgar's just a speck on one of three giant continents, and you can go anywhere. Not really, but you can go anywhere. It's a giant
Yeah,
world. Like like you can do chocobo races and all this
I mean, I feel
stuff,
like
which
it's
I'm
a good
sure that
idea
they'll do a
though,
minigame for. But
if people already felt like that, and then people who made the game who played the original probably felt like that too. Just having that break between events happening in this one big city. Okay, now let's look at the entire world, and if they're gonna do globe trotting, you know what I mean?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine. But
I think that the people that worked on the original that are making this game now have just this albatross around their neck, and they don't want to just make that game again. Creators don't really want to just do the same thing they did before again. They always want to try to tinker and make things new, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, well, Evangelion just destroyed its entire continuity in its movie remakes, so let's just do the same thing. We can make whatever we want.
yeah,
And if people don't like it, they can still play the
you could
original
even
game,
do
you know?
a route where like it doesn't have to like these alternate universes. Just say fuck it and be like, yep, this is the alternate universe. Maybe the first game happened the way it happened, but this could be completely different. And
I
like,
think that's what it's implying, is that the first game did happen, and Sephiroth knows he Sephiroth lost. So like we'll get into the sequel movie, but Sephiroth is in that movie, and it's kind of like he lives on genetically. It's called Advent Children because these are people made from Sephiroth cells or whatever,
gotcha.
and then that's how he becomes back in. So like he can basically live forever as long as a bit of him is somewhere, and that's how like those number tattoo people work, is that he just becomes one
I'm
of
just wondering if like they could do the route, like you said, creators don't want to make the same thing over and over again. That like maybe they're like, okay, we're making a remake of this, not just for financial reasons. Because I mean, of course, they're it's one, like you said, one of the more popular Final Fantasy games, if not the Final Fantasy game that people know. They're like, okay, let's make a remake because it's been a while, and I think it'd look great on PS4 or whatnot, or PC. Just now with all the technology we have, we can do more with it. But maybe at the same time, like you said, they don't want to redo everything. So maybe they're like, okay, the first game's going to be us like setting up a sequel in which we can do whatever we want. You know what I mean? And but not break it completely. Not just like, because imagine if you went in the first game and you're expecting one thing and it just, yeah, everyone dies but Cloud or something. You probably might be disappointed in a way, or you might be,
because they got to do the faithful remake, because as far as anyone knows while they're playing the game, this is a faithful remake until the very end. At very end, where they throw you in the deep end of the pool of now everything is going to be different. And it's only then when you think back, oh, okay, things were happening a little bit different. It wasn't just expanding the story, so to speak. These whispers were a part of this cool subversive plot.
that's what I'm saying. They can do a soft reboot that way. We're being like, nope, we can make more games out of this if it's successful. And if not, then
Yeah.
you don't have to make a
I
new
mean,
game.
I still want them to do major things. I want them to kill Aerith. They can set it up where it just hurts so much more, because You know, they could do a thing, like I said, maybe Cloud, Aerith, the whole crew knows Aerith dies, but then it happens anyway, even regardless of their efforts, you know? Like, they can do so many cool things. I do want to see Meteor come down. I mean, that's the logo for the game, by the way, is Meteor.
I was always wondering what that was.
Yeah, that's Meteor. I don't know if they'll... I mean, they could end it in a way so that the movie doesn't happen. The movie's lame. We'll get there when we watch the movie. That's why I didn't really want to talk about the movie all that much. That the setup for why the movie exists is kind of lame. I watched a playthrough of the prequel game, which isn't nearly as good as people remember, and I watched a side game on PS2 that's a third-person shooter, action shooter.
Interesting.
It's basically like, hey, Devil May Cry is really popular, and he's like an undead dude wearing red leather. Well, we also have this other guy. He's one of the 4 people that you get after Midgar. He's also a cool undead dude in red leather. Let's make an action game starring him. But he has guns, so it's a terrible third-person shooter, and that story is terrible. And I hope it doesn't exist. Basically,
saying with this,
in this remake, they can get rid of all of that
stuff, or just whatever. It happened in alternate reality. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's great about. Anytime you start adding like fate and time and characters like that, or alternate realities for characters, is that it just opens the door.
You
for
get
anything.
to not say that it never happened while also saying that it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's you don't get to make people pissed off. The original game still happened. We're saying that game happened. This is also happening too, which is,
I think that's why it's,
to me, super cool.
I think it's good in that way for, like I said, I try to bring a perspective of someone who didn't play any of that, play the first game, or knew anything about it really going in at all. Like, I didn't even know what the first game actually looked like until like 20 hours in, where I saw someone like retweet a video of the plate falling, like in the original game, and I'm like, oh, that's how it looks like back then. And then I started looking up, before we recorded, I was looking at like the gameplay and how it was comparing to the demo when it came out. And I'm just looking at that, and I'm like, oh, interesting.
That's the one thing that's cool, is that the beginning of Remake happens exactly the same way that the original does, besides extra conversations, and you're walking through more of the reactor just so that there's more gameplay. But everything happens the exact same until Cloud bumps into Sephiroth, which is so on the nose and cool.
I just feel like it doesn't, like, you did a remake well, I think, if it lets new people in and doesn't yeah, I was out of loop for some things, but I still enjoyed it and didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. It's more of just like, if I care enough, I can go, and read more about it. You know what I mean? And like, it's like Lord of the Rings, where like, you don't need to know anything about Lord of the Rings. You can watch the 3 movies and you know what's happening. You don't, like, if you really care about the elvish, the elf history, versus the dwarves and all.
Yeah.
If you care about that, go ahead, go read the books or read on the internet, all about that. But they don't need to explain that. And they did a good job, I think, in Final Fantasy. For me, that I didn't know what was happening, and the fact that I had no idea that, like, I thought Fate and all that was in the original game, and like, this is just, I thought, for a shot-for-shot remake with, fine-tuning and better tech. You know what I mean? So that's cool for people who've played it. That I'm glad you guys got your thing, and like, that's cool.
Do you think it's cool that they went subversive and at the last moment kind of revealed that no, this isn't this is weird because it's different now?
I didn't personally notice those things.
Well, yeah, but like, now that you know, do you think it's cool that it's like?
I think I'd have to play the game, honestly, for me to be like, oh yeah, like.
So I guess this is my question now. Are you going to play more of 7 Remake? I'm assuming no.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not. I mean, it is a game maybe like in a couple of years if I have no other games to play, and if it's on Switch or something. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I do recommend the original game. It's on Switch. Be a good plain game or good turn-based game. They do have cheats in there because that game didn't age super well. Like I said, no one considers that the best game of all time. There's a lot of jank in there. But they do add some cheats in quotes that are really things that make it accessible. You can make the game run 3 times faster than normal, except for the music, which would be weird. So that if you can grind through fights without having to wait for the long animations to go through. If you're backtracking through areas, it's gonna take shorter time. You can turn off random enemy encounters, which makes those backtracking moments feel good, because there's a lot of parts in the game where it's like, here's a cave system, and there's a bunch of dead ends with items that are cool in it, and I accidentally progressed through the cave, and I want to go back and find the dead ends, but I have to walk
like
through
Pokemon?
a random encounter. Right, yeah, exactly. Imagine if you could turn them off in
Fucking
Pokemon.
Zubat after
it just
Zubat
makes it
cave.
easier,
Jesus
right?
Christ.
So there's that, and one of them, it just makes it so that every frame in the game during battle where it's your turns completely refills your character's health, mana, and limit break.
Jesus.
So like you can make the game easy that way. And I do kind of recommend for anyone out there that did play the original game, or that did play Remake and nothing else, if you want to go back and kind of see what this whole story is, because that's my thing. Like, I do think that's why I was more than comfortable telling you the story of the original game now, is because I think by the time the sequel comes out, they expect you to know what happens. And, the fact that the original game is already on the consoles that you can play Remake on when it fully releases everywhere, I'm sure the sales of the original like shot up like crazy on digital services.
I kind of hope though that they don't assume that, because like I said, I enjoyed it because I didn't need to know every little detail, but it's like great for people who did play the first one. Like they added, like I'm saying, they still added stuff for people like you who did enjoy the first game. You know what I mean? And like they do that for a sequel, even if it is the same style, where like, yeah, you're doing all the same things again, but like different things happen or whatnot. Like for me, as long as it's fun, it's fun. Like I play a video game most of the time for if it's fun and has a decent story or something like that. You know what I mean? And for me, like I'm totally okay with what they did here, and if they do that again, but for the second half of the original game. But I mean, obviously, if you played the game already and you want something different, I totally get
second
it.
half.
Totally
Midgar was like a tenth of the original game. Sorry to cut you off there at the end. I think it's abundantly clear that I really loved Remake. Did you really like Remake? Did you like overall? Because we gave our positives and negatives, but like, is this like a game of the year contender for you? Obviously, you're playing through The Last of Us Part 2, and that might end up
I could
being
see
your
if
game
it
of the year,
wins
but
Game of
like,
the Year, I can see why. But at the same time, I'm enjoying like Last of Us right now a lot. I think a lot more, and I mean, we'll see how I haven't finished it, so maybe something happens or I'm pissed or something, then it'll change. You know what I mean? But and like I said before, like RPGs, I enjoy them, but they're not my thing. I'm starting to get into them more though with Nier Automata. I just bought Witcher 3. I know it was a big one on the Switch just to try it out. You know what I mean? To see how it goes, because I know it's a little bit more intensive. But I mean, if it wins Game of the Year, I can see why. I definitely enjoy the game. If I have to give it a number, I would say a 9 out of 10. Like I think it was pretty great. Not saying it's the best thing, like my favorite game of all time now, though, or like it is. I think it'll definitely be one of the, like when people think of the 2010s in terms of games, I definitely think you'd have to put it in there. Like when you know what I mean, like like some of the Uncharted games, you maybe throw in there, especially for Sony.
Cool. Yes, I agree with all that stuff. I would give it a 9 out of 10. Yeah, and I hope the sequel's really good.
3
I'm
years,
expecting
4
it.
years.
So I guess now speculating based off things that they have said, we could see this game. I think the latest it could come out is in only 2 years. And the fact that it took them only 3 years to make this game, while they were finishing up this game, they were already writing the story and workshopping out what the second one is going to be. They already have the gameplay style and the systems done. You know what I mean? They want to add new things. That's easier than starting from scratch. You know what I mean? Add new characters. Because again, there's 4 other characters that you get.
But I'd rather they take a couple
It
extra.
took them 3 years to make this game.
Give me 5.
It took them...
Give me 5. That's fine. You know what I mean? Like, add a little bit extra to it. Because there were some moments where I felt like it was like, where they could have added a little bit more. You know, like especially in some of the like levels, or like when you were talking about the experiment levels where you got split up and you had to do all those, like,
yeah, those sucked.
Refine that kind of stuff. Or if you're gonna do that, and some of the factories looked kind of similar to other factories, and I get like, yeah, you probably build a factory the same way, but like I just want like little bit more detail, I guess, in that. Or like, there's sometimes I'd go down a corridor and there was nothing. Like I'm like expecting an item.
Yeah, that is weird. That is weird.
And for someone who likes to check every corner,
Exactly.
reward me a little bit.
Yeah, it's almost like when they had a bunch of playtesters play it, a lot of people didn't find the thing they put down there, so instead of deleting that hallway, they just deleted the thing.
Yeah,
you know, like, oh, no one's gonna walk down here. Whatever.
That's me though. I'll walk down every corner because I'm like, oh, there's an item
Same.
that I need because I have no potions left. You know what I mean? Or
Exactly. Oh, hard mode doesn't let you use any items. You have to rest at a bench. But yeah, I mean, so the people making this game are old as fuck, and the reason why they started making this game is because they're old as fuck, and if they're gonna do it, they need to do it now. So I think that there is a pressure to like, don't spend 10 years to make this game like they did with Final Fantasy 15. We have a reputation as Square of announcing a game when we start it, and then 6 years pass, and we finally come out with Kingdom Hearts 3. And Kingdom Hearts 3 doesn't look like it took 6 years to make. Final Fantasy VII Remake, to me, looks like it took 6 years to make. Like, it looks like Kingdom Hearts 3 took... Like, you could have swapped the development time, and it would have made more sense to me. Because Kingdom Hearts 3 is not nearly as good as this game. So, that's why, like, it is a hope and a dream that, oh, Square can make games faster.
Yeah, and with the new consoles, too, I feel like our expectations have to be higher, though, too. Like you said, there is a turnaround time you expect, but at the same time, like, games are getting more gorgeous, especially for games that are I hate using the term realistic, because video games can never be realistic, but you know what I mean, like the visual quality, you know what I mean, the lighting, the graphics, like that's like an expectation now, unless you're purposely doing a retro style game, or you're not like
a stylized,
but if that's their style they're going for, like, and with the new consoles coming out, I'm gonna have that expectation, you know what I mean,
for sure.
I know, but I'm not saying graphics has to be the end all be all, but we're getting to the point now where, like, oh yeah, Ghost of Tsushima I hear looks great. You know what I mean? And like that is if it looked bad, it's gonna be a negative. You know what I mean? Especially if they hype it up as something that's gonna look beautiful.
This game struggles to maintain its graphical fidelity. That's why a lot of textures are so like blurry.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I thought that was.
Some people say it's actually a bug, and there actually is high res textures in there that they found, and this game is on 2 discs. It's struggling to keep that level of fidelity because the characters are legitimately gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
Like they're so detailed, it's insane. I'm expecting that level of detail, but in a game that's not. I don't want to say it's this game is not corridor based, but it's close. Like it's definitely a linear path that they're taking you on. It's also a guided story with. You can't just go anywhere because Sector 7's destroyed, or you can't go back here because of this or that. Like, it's a guided story, so it's not an open world game, and I don't want the sequel to be an open world game, but they could do this level of fidelity in a guided story in bigger environments, because they can maintain the level, at least this level of fidelity that way, you know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised, knowing their bullshit, Square likes to re-release Kingdom Hearts games with a little bit extra content in them. I wouldn't be surprised if on PS5 and Xbox Series X there is a version of this game on that has an epilogue where you play as Zack in the beginning, in the first bombing mission or something. Or like maybe some extra story, some bullshit to get people like me to buy the game again, which I would buy the game again for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that. I mean, I've seen some people speculate, oh, what if they release a smaller budget game because, you know, they're working on the sequel and maybe it's going to take a little bit longer. So as a recompense or whatever, they released a budget title that is the kind of story of this game, but you're a Zack. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different, but it's basically the same stuff that happens, but you're playing as Zack like, now. It's a little different or something.
Lost Legacy.
Exactly. Or Spider-Man Miles
Morales. We still don't know, but it sounds like it.
Sounds like it's a
which
budget
I'm still going to
title.
buy, of course. Like
Day one.
Yeah.
If it's a launch title for PS5, that's going to be my PS5 game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things they could do, but I did enjoy it, and I guess I am invested.
You're a fan
now.
now.
Man. I'm a fan.
Yes. And like I said, even though I basically explained the outline of the story to you,
I'm sure there's stuff
so much of it can change.
But...
That, and also, like, I think it's that basic stuff that I said the key, not the key to understanding the sequels, but like is what could make moments pop more, and none of them could even happen, which is why like it's such a fascinating proposition of a game. But
Yeah.
yes, I could talk forever, but I think we should wrap this up.
It's the longest episode we'll ever do.
I think our Detective Pikachu was also long.
That was 2 hours. We're in the 3 hour mark, baby.
Damn. Well, it depends on editing. I might knock it down under 3.
You just do a part 1 and a part 2. But no, we do a part 1, then 3 years later we drop the part 2, like Final Fantasy.
Yes. That's the thing. I don't even know how many parts this is going to be. And considering that this sold very well, they can make it a lot more parts than they expected. Who
Part
knows?
3.1.
Yep. Kingdom Hearts 2.8, Final Chapter Prologue.
I can't believe that's an actual title.
That's a title.
Hope they do movies like that one day. Avengers 1.3. We added more Loki moments.
I mean, the Snyder cut.
Of Avengers?
No, of
but call
Justice League.
Justice League
1.4.
Yeah. Snyder Cut edition.
All right, well, if you enjoyed this rambling discussion about Final Fantasy VII Remake, a game we both recommend you buy, and you want to hear more conversations and ideas that we have to say about films and philosophies, and games, movies, Sonic the Hedgehog, maybe even, that's what this show's titled after. Check out our other episodes on this podcast feed. We also do a big podcast about Vin Diesel. Then, after you're done listening to every single episode, why don't you head over to twitter.com. The show can be reached at Sonic Movie Show. My name was Ethan. I'm on Twitter at Ethan Absolutely. Devin here is on Twitter at CURSONA YouTube. And let us know what you think about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Is everything that we predicted about the next game, is that stupid? Let us know. Be nice, though. And we'll see you next time for another episode. Bye.
Bum, bum, ba, da, da. I don't even know. I have like the bass line in my head, but then it doesn't come out.
Oh, man, I'm going to make you listen to the whole soundtrack now.
Bum,
Sorry.
Bum, dun, dun, dun. Bum, bum, ba, da, da. Bum, ba, bum, dun, dun, dun. Bum, bum, ba, da, da.